Call back to order the rules subcommittee meeting for June 5th.
But just, we'll probably take it to the drawing board for that. We think we can make some of this like concise so that we're not duplicating.
Down there is the
Over. So we're gonna mark that in our notes just to kind of not change the contents, but just make it just to understand. This is where we think of is two or C.
so in C, does that happen after June 30th?
To my knowledge, Tina, are you still on?
Back on.
Back on?
Yes, I'm here.
So we're questioning C, no payment shall be made after the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Can you speak on that?
I mean, as far as I know, everything, I thought it was a hard deadline. It had to be paid out. I know last year they wouldn't accept anything after June 30th.
So that was.
So that's just so the customer knows. So D and E, they're not. Is F and A 1099 in those individual payments, but it's not more than 600, so it's not required. Oh, they are
Yeah.
1099?
They are 1099 because it is 600. If it was 599, they wouldn't have to send them a 1099.
So how does that help? How does that happen with the David's people? They just give the 1099 check and then they.
That's why I have to get W-9s from the individuals that are paid directly. That
If they don't report it, the federal government's gonna know they got $600. The IRS. It's incumbent on them to add it to their miscellaneous income.
Do we want to add anything about individuals receiving check in these two paragraphs?
Sorry, what was that?
D and E,
Yeah, Merva, what was your question?
Do we want to add anything about when an individual receives a check?
because it's not the responsibility of unit government to distribute theirs. And E doesn't apply to the individual.
So should we just say when applicable?
Yeah, maybe that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add that at the beginning on both of them. G can go.
I think failure to provide information by the required date when we vote on adjustment. So, but that would now be the March.
Yes.
Do we need to keep that or just leave that on the March 30th side?
Yeah, so that last line, let's keep and add the March deadline on there.
Do we have the March 1 deadline in there already? Some?
It's further down.
Okay.
So we could just add.
Or you not actually leave the date off that one, but just keep the failure to provide.
Why do we have volunteer?
It should be just everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what else?
Oh, you know why? Because at the beginning, it talks about department payroll, and so for a volunteer, it should be on the roster.
Payroll. Yeah, you could do that and then take out your.
Here's the sticky wicket. Beginning of the chapter.
So this paragraph is what we need to discuss.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we had issues about,
This
line of
was-
duty deaths and
Yes.
as far as,
Yes.
Reflects earlier in the chapter.
If qualifying individuals separate fire service for any of the reasons for becoming qualified. So the
that's
way
where
we
we were talking about the qualification, qualifying and eligible.
right. So what is qualified? The way we interpreted it was you met all the benchmarks and completed all of the training.
All the training, except in the earlier rule.
Yeah, so you did your 40 hours, you're a firefighter 2, or you're a volunteer and had your 1664 line burn. You were qualified and then you retired, became disabled or died, then we would pay you out. But at the last committee meeting, y'all determined to go ahead and pay the deceased firefighters. But
Based on previous practice.
yes, based on
Legal
previous practice.
interpretation.
So we need to clean that up, break it apart, however, whatever that needs to look like. Because
Whole rule.
here's the,
Well, I've got the red line. Mine doesn't have 1, 2, or 3. I just started 4 chapter. It's back in, I think it's back in 2 is the eligibility. No, I have that
Oh, okay.
earlier in the document. Says how you qualify. Shoot firefighters complete either the 40 or the 30. That makes you eligible. Same for career.
So we're using eligible and qualify.
change it.
No, we're making them, it's a both.
Well, and that's where,
That's where we have to make a decision.
yes,
We've been erring to the side of giving them the money.
right.
The only danger, but we do it elsewhere. And how many every time I want to be careful not to die on this hill. We're giving educational incentive because you complete the educational requirements. If you die, you're not, well, it's going to your state. You're not getting it anyway.
So I think let's define eligible and qualified.
So the
Yeah.
eligibility is, that's 012. Called career educational program, serve as the municipality, full-time department, complete 40 hours of in-service training. That's 0.2 under eligibility. That's career.
So that's eligible.
Eligible. You have to have 40 hours of training unless, well, there's a law that's not in this list. If they get deployed,
Right,
that's its own law
right.
in that section. It stands alone. These rules say if you retire, these, how's it say it? Qualify. These are qualifying events. But only, this rule is exempting you from the December 31st requirement.
Right.
If you retire, but you can't be qualified unless you're eligible.
Correct. So that's,
There's room for confusion, although the eligibility is correct. I did 40 hours. Now, I left on October 30th. Well, why'd you leave?
one of those three things.
Those three things, you still get the money. You don't have to be on the roster on the
Correct.
31st. So there really are two things. One's that you finish the training. Now you're eligible. Now, did you qualify? Did you meet the final December 31st? Because you're going to finish the training on January 15th.
Right.
Went by.
Yeah.
You're eligible. You've met the eligibility. Now you're not qualified yet.
So, but that's where confusion coming in the
Let's,
commission.
let's look at the end in mind. Who do we want to pay and what do we want them to have to achieve? Once we determine that, like, who do we want to pay? And then we can try to work through the verbiage of this of how we want it. So do we want to pay people that have passed away?
So here's the caveat I'm gonna throw. Here I am, a career person, non-line of duty death after completing 30 hours. I'm almost there. I just couldn't finish my last 10 hours because they were after I died.
Right.
But I started and I made more than halfway progress.
What do y'all want to do with that as far as, do you want to pay them or do we not?
They're probably out of step, so I'm going to hold my judgment. The payment is to an individual. We're not paying the individual anymore.
No, you're right.
They're long gone. And they didn't complete the training, so again, I'm not against, because you're talking about 2 people a year is probably what this is gonna be, 2 to 5. But, okay, now the guy goes, well, I broke my arm and I didn't, where do we stop once we open this can of worms? We'll have a lot of other exceptions that didn't finish the training. See, those 3 finished the training on that list because they met the eligibility.
I think once you earn the payment, we can't take your eligibility away because of these things. But if somebody did not earn it, then that would be a policy decision of what it's.
It's a policy decision. I'm strongly away. My only fear is what are we not thinking of that somebody's gonna come to us? Well, I didn't finish, but for this reason, do we keep paying for non-completed training programs?
Well, retired people, I mean,
But they did the 40
if they
hours,
did the 40 hours, then.
but we're paying them. They met the eligibility and the
Right, but
qualification.
what if they retired earlier in the year and they didn't do their 40 hours?
And they didn't complete, they didn't, under today's rule, they didn't meet the eligibility.
And if you
For the
want
salary
to do
supplement.
case by case, we can change this waiver language.
Well, when we get the way,
I mean, that's.
yeah, let's
We're just
finish
this
this
one
one.
because we did. That's what happened.
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably gonna happen a couple times a year. So is this the hill to die on? I don't know. I worry about the ramifications going forward. How many other things do we get? How long does this list get in the next few years? It's 3 today. Does it become 6, 7, 8? As people bring them to us. And then we're back to just handing out money.
remember. What's it gonna look like after we leave? So I think that we need to clarify what eligible means in this. So if a qualifying individual is separated, so I think we need to spell it out right here that they are eligible or qualified, whichever wordage we're gonna use, that the training was completed.
I would even go as far as to get rid of those words and spell it out. Individual has completed the 30 or 40 hour required
The
training.
minimum required training.
For, yeah, don't even use the big words. Let's not play the doctor or whatever, but
No,
card,
but
spell it out.
What are we gonna do with section 0367-02? It's its own section with all its TCA history.
But we did that. That's,
Oh, it's been around for,
no, I'm saying like we worked on that already, though, right?
it requires those things. And then move the mouse soon enough. She'll have to recast it.
But I think we need to spell that out in writing, that in order to receive they must have completed the minimum number of hours of training for. And whether that's 40 or 30, depending on if it's career or volunteer, but they have to meet that minimum benchmark
Mhm.
in order to be paid.
Correct. And I don't disagree with that.
And then that way, it's no longer historical practice, now black and white.
And that's what we need in the office is black and white, because again, we were,
So there's, and maybe they need to be together. Under the eligibility, for the purpose of qualifying for VEIP, a person must meet the following criteria. Serve as volunteer firefighter, as defined by TCA 424-201, with the fire department recognized per 68-102-3. Complete 30 hours of in-service training in firefighting or prevention of fires. So that's volunteer. 2, for the person qualifying for career educational, serve in the employ of a municipality, county, political division as a full-time employee, department recognized. Complete the 40 hours. That makes you eligible for salary. Now down here, however many sections later that is the, what do they call this one?
the topic.
The payment procedures. Right. Oh, next page, 38 probably. Yeah, it becomes eligible and accepts a disability retirement. See, it becomes eligible, it references back to what's the eligibility. It says becomes eligible and accepts a service retirement. Becomes eligible and accepts a disability, dies while employed. But they've all met the eligibility in section 2, and this is what, section 6. Either combine them, abolish one.
Let's
Side.
reference that. Look at how I read it.
Well, I'm not saying we don't pay out.
If an individual has completed the required training and is otherwise eligible under section 2, prior to separating with the department, and separates from the department for one of the following reasons, the commission shall pay as if the individual is on the December 31st roster.
And is that an eligibility? What if there's no estate? What if there is no body? What do you do? Just don't pay? I mean, there's a guy died right around the corner from me. He didn't have states selling his house. I mean, he didn't have anybody.
So it would go, that would probably go under the, it would go to the county, city, however.
There's nowhere to send it. They're not gonna, they can't keep it.
No, they have to send it back.
They have to send it back.
I mean, if it comes back, then it'll just get dissolved.
I'm just, is that something we want to pay out for? I mean, I guess that's the question too.
But I think it's not our problem. Like if he's dead and he doesn't have an estate and we pay the department.
Pay them unless they complete the training. But today, they have to have done the 40 hours. We're talking about paying people that didn't complete the training. Like the last case.
So, but in this rule that y'all have here, 1, you have become eligible, 2, becomes eligible, 3, then you just say dies while employed. You never said in 3.
You still have this to do with before you get to that. Eligibility is established, then these are the 3 things you can pay out for if they're eligible. And the military, they're actually at 4. I'm not saying we don't add it, or we add the language there becomes eligible, or these probably shouldn't be in 2 sections. If that makes any sense, it breeds the confusion too. Like she said, that maybe all that should be up here. Here, if you're eligible, here are 3 exceptions, or 4 exceptions, or 5, whatever we can come up with. Because somebody's got to know that they're eligible from veterans. That's a different law, but that's not here.
So you're saying remove it from that section and put it back earlier in.
Back earlier in the document.
Let us take that back to the drawing board and show you guys.
But we're the ones deciding if we're paying out to the state.
Right. Well, see, right now, the way you read number 3, it's tied into the paragraph that is in front of it. And that's where the qualifying or eligible comes in. So it doesn't have to say becomes eligible because it's already saying it in the paragraph above it. When, concerning the dies with employed. So if somebody was skim scanning and then they just saw the dies while being employed and not reading that paragraph above it, then that's the assumption where, oh, they're gonna get paid. So.
Yeah, because that number 3 doesn't say they have to be eligible.
But it does in the paragraph, and that's where I'm saying. if
No,
somebody
it says
gets paid-
qualified. You didn't be eligible. See, it's not eligible in that highlighted paragraph. It's qualified.
So right there,
We can pay them right here by rule, because the other 1 and 2, 1 says becomes eligible, 2 says become eligible, 3 doesn't say that. It says they're qualified because they died. Way the lawyer may see it as different. But since we don't have the becomes eligible in front of it, it's not a requirement.
I think that was why, so the way I read it, and Lee might have said differently, and Mike, you tell me of y'all's conversation. I wasn't here for this initial conversation. But dies while employed seems to be a qualifying,
Event without the eligibility.
but then it says becomes qualified. Hold on.
That's why I'm saying, like, the whole thing is confusing. It's,
After becoming qualified. If a qualifying individual is separated after becoming qualified. So I guess we have to decide is qualified and eligible the same thing.
Not by, they intentionally left it off of 3.
right,
We put it on the first 2 and didn't put it on 3 for a reason. To handle these if they die.
that's,
That's the way I'm reading it.
So does the commission want death alone to be an eligibility or an event? Or do they need to have over to the requirements in section 2?
We can argue it for the moment. Because technically, it's not going to the individual that, even if he completed.
Mike, do you have any input on that?
No.
Do you have any input on this one?
I think whatever we do, they need to be all in O2 and not separated. Here are the exceptions to this.
I agree.
We could even put the military clause, and I forgot, it's its own law, and I don't think I printed it all. I'm not really arguing
I
about
think
it.
it's under Title 68.
I think it is
We can
too,
just pull it.
because it's actually a qualifying event. If they're deployed, they'll have to complete it. They don't have to become eligible. Just get it.
I
long as they
got
approve.
questions about that one too.
About your orders.
It specifically states in there, like,
Was unable to complete in service based off of deployment.
well, deployment for a specific tool, like,
In wartime, not to go fill in and pick them for 2 weeks while somebody's gone on guard duty.
yes,
Yeah, it did say named conflict.
yeah, it does,
Something like that. And I think we've been interpreting any orders are official orders and we've been paying.
yes, and I
Because
don't,
it's a
I don't
Republican state.
think that's, I don't think that's how it's supposed to be based upon that.
Way it reads, yeah, I'm with you on that. But our,
Now, we're having this discussion over that shaded area right now, right?
And
Okay.
number 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3. So this whole
Well,
thing
and,
right here with all this.
and, Mary Beth, this seems redundant and confusing. And maybe I'm misunderstanding, but what if it said, if a qualified individual is separated from fire service, the firefighter will be considered as having met the December 31st requirements if you don't need for any of the following reasons, because you're saying that again when you state these reasons. So if you just said, if a qualified individual, again, we're assuming the person's already qualified, is separated from the fire service, the firefighter will be considered as having met the December 31st requirements if the firefighter, then you get, becomes eligible.
But that's where the qualified and eligible is where we're going back and kind of having discussion.
Heartburn over.
Yes,
5
because
sections earlier talks about your eligibility.
it's been almost used interchangeable, so we're kind of, what is the correct verbiage? Do we spell it out? Do we, like, how do we define quality or qualified? or eligible?
Qualified and eligible mean the same thing, don't they? I mean,
I think,
Not in this rule
I
today.
think
No.
not in the rule today.
means you did everything you could do, you should be on the roster. Qualified would mean you did everything you were supposed to do, you should be on the roster, and you are on the roster on December 31st.
Okay.
If on December 31st, you're not on the roster for one of these three reasons, then you can still be qualified. So then the next question is, do we want death to be a qualifying event if you would not have otherwise been eligible?
Oh, if you would not have otherwise been eligible, I'd say no. I mean, but I'd say just from a policy, if you wouldn't be,
That's kind of, because you open it up to a lot of other things that maybe
Yeah.
you didn't finish it for whatever
Yeah.
the reason.
Yeah.
You took a sabbatical after a divorce. I mean, I could just come up with 100 reasons. Oh, I did some other training.
I mean, you're sympathetic to anybody who dies, but you open that door up and,
Because right now it's wide open.
yeah,
And that's
okay.
the battle we're fighting with.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is we
We just
in-
take one out.
historically before, this year for say, if they died, they passed away, they just paid them out. Well, this year, based upon rule, we were trying to follow very closely, and I was like, no, we cannot do this. And
They're
so
not
they brought it,
eligible.
yeah, they brought it before the board. The board said, hey,
Okay, yeah, so I guess with the definitions, with qualified and eligible meaning two different things here, while it doesn't mean two different things in practical, but it does here. What if that said becomes qualified and then die? I mean, if they
I
were
think that's why
qualified, yeah,
And we definitely need to put these in the same section because
Yeah.
it's 702 defines eligibility, and the eligibility is 40 hours or 30 hours. Now you're eligible. Now, did you qualify by being on the books on the 31st? If you weren't on the books, was it one of these three things?
okay.
Or there's really a fourth, military on orders, which, did you find that chapter yet?
It's in 68. When we go clean all this up, we'll reference it. I've written.
But I think it's like she said, it says for a named conflict, which would be enduring freedom, Iraqi.
it's enduring freedom.
I know, it's
Yeah.
very limited.
Yeah, not like a regular deployment, but a specifically named conflict.
Even if that's 2-week deployment to middle of
Right.
nowhere,
Yeah.
they've still been qualifying based upon his, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we need to find that chapter because it's relevant too.
Mary Beth has it,
She has it, you know?
she has a note, reference.
Oh, I was just, I should have printed it off yesterday.
It's reasonable for individual to be paid on a specific subsection.
It's one of the last ones.
Yeah, it's down at the very bottom, I know. I remember reading,
That's
it, and I was like,
material too.
Yeah.
These guys aren't finishing either, and we're paying them.
So,
Is that named conflict in the statute or the rule?
"Dude,
It's in the statute, yeah, well, we got no wiggle room in that then, yeah,
But we-
So that's what it is.
well, and that's one thing, if somebody fusses about that, and we hear from legislator, we say, guys, this is the language y'all used. That's right.
Iraqi freedom and Jersey.
But it's wrote in statute.
So we're gonna move that up into the upper section.
02, but we need, still have.
I'm getting ready to- Oh, yeah, well,
Appreciate it.
yeah, y'all are doing work that needs to be done, but I don't envy you at all. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
We all done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of us.
I'm gonna head home. I'll see y'all later.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Yeah, I gotta hit Chattanooga at 4 o'clock. Other than that,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, and then you open up, one of them has fire, it'll be like firefighting and one will be like educational. Center.
Can't get my TCA code
I should.
linked to work. There we go.
It's not under 68.
Yeah, it's
424?
it's in 424.
424. 20.
But it's very specific, isn't it? 202.
David.
Just,
And
202. Any firefighter who served or serves on an duty of the United States during Operation Enduring Freedom or any other period of armed conflict prescribed by presidential proclamation or federal law that occurs following the period involving Operation Enduring Freedom shall receive the cash salary supplement provided in this section. If such service prevented or presents such firefighter from attending service training.
sorry.
So it's during or after Operation Enduring Freedom, armed conflict prescribed by presidential proclamation or federal.
but that doesn't mean that they go on a 2-week training
No,
and they get it. And that's what's been
it
happening.
would have to be, I declare war, and then,
Yeah.
Even if they do 6 months in Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, backfield, get points, we're paying them.
Yeah.
Because you can volunteer for orders. I did a lot. And sometimes they get orders.
So in Nashville, it would purposefully do these. Be gone,
Different.
yeah, for the whole year or two.
it named Desert Storm, Desert Shield Operation, Enduring Freedom, and then any period of armed conflict prescribed by presidential proclamation or federal law. So unless
So
there's,
nobody's eligible now. There's no conflict right now.
No,
unless there's something that says we're in a war signed by president or federal law,
Two.
then
Usually that's NATO orders as well. Stat NATO. So we've been paying, so we either gotta stop paying. Cause this one's expired. What do you say? OEF ended 11 years ago?
12/28/2014.
unbelievable.
We pay for any orders. If they had them, we just been not arguing with them. And I say about we with the commission office, we've never told them to enforce it.
so this is an allowable stat. It's a, like, it's saying we have to pay if they qualify here. You guys would change the rules where, but that's opening it up to pay more people that might not otherwise be eligible. So if we
They're
want
already
to
double
follow,
dipping.
There,
yeah, if we want to follow the statute and not expand further, then we don't need anybody on military service.
Yeah.
That's why I like the narrowness of O2. You do the 40 hours, you do the 30 hours.
well, and that, also going back to this deletion of the substitution form, that's how they were doing it. They would submit their orders through via substitution.
It's long.
And so now if we've done away with the substitution, there is no more. You do your 30 hours or your 40, end of discussion.
But from the military standpoint, deployment has very specific meanings. Like, I was stationed at Cherry Point, North Carolina, I went PAD, TDY
Anyway,
to Gulfport, Mississippi for 2 weeks.
or hurricane probably.
No, we just had Harriers down there flying around.
Oh.
We went to provide the fire suppression support for the Harriers, our aircraft flying around. But that wasn't a deployment, where a lot of folks are like, if they're leaving their base, they call it a deployment. It's not really a deployment. Deployments are when you go
Overseas.
somewhere, right?
You go somewhere,
You come back with ribbons and medals, not,
money.
right?
Cause like Brentwood, anybody, let's say you're an E5 and you're making 70,000 as a firefighter and you only make 50,000 as an E5, they make up the difference. They give them the extra 20 they were calling a year, but they're very
So
pro.
whereabouts, how is this going to affect all the ones she just paid out in 2024?
We don't talk to you about.
I think we've already done it.
Yeah, what's
Yeah, I
the
don't think it's
reason?
against, I don't think we did anything that was against the rules. I think we were just giving more people that were statutorily eligible. We need to ask Lee, but in my opinion, from just looking at it, nothing in the rule says we can't do it. It just seems like statutorily, the commission was going over and above the requirements of the statute. So just like if we were gonna make a little stricter for EMP versus training standards, I think the commission going over and above can be a policy decision. And I think we need to confirm with Lee to make sure that we don't have to do anything to make that right.
Because that law was passed specifically in response to the conflicts in the desert.
No, you're gonna get a bunch of phone calls next year when we don't do it.
Last year? Oh, I don't know how post handles.
Post has a statute, I don't know exactly what it says, but Post has a statute that covers
All,
same or similar.
and I'm not opposed to it. I'm retired military, so, but just gotta be, what's he keep saying, when we're not here,
Yeah,
what's the consistency going forward? And for the customers out there, consistency, not case by case basis, although sometimes some things are case by case, but. I mean, I just had a guy get back. He was sent to an undisclosed location in Eastern Europe. He's a helicopter pilot. Probably a real deployment. It's not the same as me going and filling at Scott Air Force Base for 6 months in the fire department. That's not a deployment. His may not have been official, his were orders, but there was top secret order. I mean, they weren't revealed where they were.
Right.
We had a pretty good idea. We would go to church with him. Believe me, he didn't want to go because he just got his 737 qualification. He was flying commercially. But he's also a UH-60 pilot, so guess what?
all
You're
right,
going to
so,
the coast of that.
so they're gonna rework it and
We're
then,
gonna try to make all of that.
And it needs to be in one section.
Section.
Yeah, those, and I'm not opposed. I mean, what's our thought is we're the commission representatives, right? Is it 2 or
Where's
3
that
times?
at? I apologize. Where's that in the rules right now? I'm having problems even finding it.
it's in chapter 7. See, you got my copy of it.
Got your copy. 02 is the first place. 07, 02, and then 07, 06.
702, okay.
It's in 2 places. You gotta look in both. Tina denied it because they didn't finish the training.
Hey, it's under payment procedures. It's where we are, payment procedures,
Tina's,
Page
6.
1, 2, and 3.
Tina's typing a reply.
So do we want the rule for people who die, that they have to become eligible before they die?
That's the way we interpreted it this year in the office.
Yes,
They had not become eligible under 02.
yeah, they did not complete, we did have one that did complete his 40 hours and we paid him out and that was never
Question.
a question, but we had 2 that we had one pass away early in the year in February, so he had very, very few hours. And then we had another one pass away in the middle of the year. And again, still didn't have his full hours. And that was the one that really got talked the most about, and ended up coming before the board. And they decided based upon historical practices, but we definitely made it clear that we were gonna be discussing that in this and try to clean it up. So there would be no more discussion later.
Either is or isn't.
So now we're here.
So we're here having this discussion.
Yes.
Like I said, I can go either way. It's not gonna be that many either, but the other side of me is what's the long-term impact? What other waivers do we start seeing or requests to put in the rules? So-and-so broke his arm, he was in 3 months. So-and-so had chemo like me. I was off for 4 months. I couldn't hardly sit up without throwing it. So I wouldn't have completed training that year. But I've been a fireman for 35 years. What do you mean I don't get the salary? I'm making an argument for it. I mean, well, I'm gonna get it. I couldn't help because I had chemo. But that's what we're gonna get if we open it up. Again, I hate to be the jerk in this. The actual person getting the money will never know. They passed away. It's going to the family. That's what I told somebody else. I said, look, we can pass the hat in here and come up with $800 and get done with this real quick. I mean, if it is
I mean,
a line of duty death, hopefully, well, see, that one was natural causes, right? Wasn't a line of duty death, so they didn't get the 250,000.
I think the one in, I don't even know. February might have been, March.
So they get 250, 50 over 5 years and 4 years, 1 year. And then
I process those for the department. So if you know someone that doesn't know how to do that paperwork, please send them to me.
So, but let's answer the question. We might include it as exceptions. But point, no, the heart tells us to pay it. Whether logic enters into the equation or not.
I think they should have to be qualified just like everyone else. Or eligible.
Or, yeah, we need to get rid of one of those words in the cleanup. Just qualified by the.
Just for the sake of simplicity, they all should have the required
40 hours.
30 or 40.
Except for the, well, yeah, even the ones that have exception today have the 40 or 30 hours. These three, or these two. Military, different animal, we're gonna have to clamp down on that.
So we'll get something back to you guys.
And maybe, Travis, you off the line now?
I'll know if you keep back.
All right. And you cleaned up C and D before this already, about the paying of government benefits.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the last page.
We're at INJ. I think those, so I-1 and 2 comes from the fiscal side. So I think.
Yeah, I think they're fine. I mean, if Tina calls and says you didn't submit this, you've got 15 days to
Well,
submit it.
we need to add a department or individual.
One,
At
I-1,
I-1.
because sometimes she'll be wanting a W-9. She can't pay without a W-9.
It was Jay.
So J is a repeat of what we had up previous when we included other entity.
But could an individual not go through another entity? They just be the one.
It would be on that one where you were just at. So payment procedures, payment will be made only upon.
But what if an individual all by himself?
We don't need individuals submitting for themselves. They need to go through a department or the organization.
Okay.
So should this say organization?
Well, the thing is,
You've already said it.
Tina, if, can you hear me?
On number 1, I think I know what you're gonna ask. On number, I think it should say.
I think it's her headset.
Yeah, it's
Can
her
you,
headset.
did you turn?
Yeah, I control the volume.
Oh,
Can y'all,
there we go.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This headset, I'm telling you, we're fighting today. We have a love-hate relationship today. So I think on number 1, if it said a department or individual, I think it's fine on number 1 because that could be if they are with the department and I'm processing the department as a whole, the department covers that. But as far as the individuals, I have some right now that Pleasant View, for example, their chief just sent me, as we're speaking, just sent me an email and said, this guy has not responded to either of us, remove him. And it's because we were waiting on him as an individual to submit a W-9 to me, a corrected W-9.
Right, so where my question is, when you're requesting that information from that volunteer, are you going through that department, Tennessee Firemen's Association, or the individual?
If the money's going to directly to the individual, I just contact the individual.
Okay,
Now I wouldn't put individual in number 2 because that number 2 is actually talking about, I'm trying to think, that would basically be the 2 deceased members that we just paid out. That would be considered an addition to their submission. So it's basically what I call amended batches.
that or I forgot to add this person.
Yes.
Okay,
I actually have one of those now that I'm working with. I had a request form that I come across that the department was they were piggybacking off of Gibson County. But the department, I guess, had never really had any training on the VEIP and how it worked and what they needed to submit and when, because they didn't technically have an approved program. So I've never reached out to them. They're actually, Cindy is going to submit an amendment to her batch to get their individuals paid. Since we've already paid Gibson County out for the year, she's going to do an amendment.
gotcha. All right. Good, so waivers. So when we talk about waivers, not only do we need to have one here in the education, but we need to have a broader stroke of what the waiver is. Okay, because we've tried or we've been asked to give waivers for anything, right? So this is where we really have to either tighten or open up as far as what the waiver is for. I think when we talk about a waiver in EIP, it's a waiver for, well, we won't need to do a waiver anymore for late submissions for approved to get the approval, right? The only waiver we would be needing to do today, based on these rules, is if they miss the March 1st deadline.
What about the waiting period between certs?
That's what I'm saying. We're in EIP.
I don't even know why
Why
that's,
is that?
That we should have another waiver piece in the certification in what, chapter 4? Okay.
It's in
But somewhere-
chapter 2 and chapter 3 now. Waiting period.
3.
Well, it says 2
Yeah.
and 3 there.
All right. So
Because what happens, this is more on the career side. It could start affecting them. They drag their feet and they get firefighter 1 at the 37th month.
the waiver that we talk about here should only be for EIP, period. Because what we've done in the past is, and this is where we've created contradiction, is we've added rules for other pieces, for other chapters in the wrong chapter. And so if I'm looking for something concerning certifications in a waiver for certifications, I'm not looking in EIP chapter for what my right as for to claim a waiver is. So if we're gonna have a waiver piece, then we should have a waiver piece in each chapter that it coincides with, to keep it clean.
Now, the reason they're asking for it here is because we already have a waiting period in those other chapters.
Right.
They wait till the 35th month to get their firefighter one. Now they're not eligible because the waiting period is whatever it is, a year, let's just say a year.
But this is EIP.
Yeah.
This is not certification.
Yeah, we need to keep the waiver in this chapter strictly for EIP waivers.
My personal opinion is if we want to put waivers in somewhere else, I think they belong more in chapter 6 is just kind of a catch-all because it catches everything else that we do and not just this program.
And as far as anything else relating to certifications, we can put it in that one chapter or in the multiple chapters. But when we talk about a waiver here, it should strictly be for EIP,
Yes.
period.
I agree with that.
But the only reason they're ever gonna want a waiver, but not always a strong word, is EIP.
Well, not necessarily, because we have some that
I
ask for a
know,
waiver.
I'm not saying it doesn't come up, but the biggest push is because they're not gonna be eligible for salary supplement next month because they gotta wait to take that second test.
Well,
That's the reason they're asking for the waiver,
right, but then,
so they can meet the minimums of EIP.
but then that waiver request will be coming from the chapter 6 or
Yeah.
2 or whatever. It's not gonna be because they're,
Well, I mean, all this is doing is pointing to those.
no, we're gonna take that out.
Well, but I mean, the only thing it's doing today is pointing back to those.
Right.
It's not really in here, it's just pointing back to.
And so that's one of the biggest things that drives you nuts when you're a code inspector, having to go and chase the rabbit through the code, because it keeps referencing you to go somewhere else and to go somewhere else. This waiver should strictly be missing the deadline of March 1st. What else would there be a waiver for at this point with these new rules?
If you're short on hours for some excusable reason. So say you didn't get your 30 hours of training because you had.
Oh, two. That's not even here.
Well, it's back in payout though.
Yeah.
We've already
But-
addressed it.
But this is where that waiver piece will come in.
So that.
I think.
That would be a waiver
Dash oh
piece.
two.
If that's what the commission.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that 03600202, it's not even in 02 anymore. It's gone.
We need to like, take that part out. I think there's the waiting periods. I think there's separate questions about waiting periods.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I mean, I'm just making another point of, it don't even exist anymore. It's in a
So-
rule.
2 waivers. 1, missing the deadline for March 1st. And the second one is requesting a waiver because,
For any reason you didn't get the training hours, I think you could go pour your heart out to the commission, they might let you get paid.
So how did we word that as for any
well,
other?
maybe they have, I'm asking for a waiver to complete my 2025 or my 2024 in the first month of 2025 because of this. The
We
waiver,
would not want to waiver that. We're gonna say you gotta have 30 hours or 40 hours, why would we waive it?
but that's what I'm saying. Get that have that option of, as an example, what would we waiver in EIP? Other than missing the March 1st deadline.
And that's usually not the individual, that's a department of the state,
Yeah.
usually.
Correct.
So we're not punishing the individual for what was out of their control. Not finishing the training should be in their control, especially we're making it much more broader. They don't have to
Yeah.
be there on June 1st to that 4-hour,
Right.
And they're not even necessarily dependent upon their department. If they want to go take a NFA class on their own and bring the certificates back and give it to their training officers, then they can be uploaded and there you go.
So once
I mean,
again, outside of March 1st deadline,
I don't think that's it.
then
So we don't, so if the commission, like, okay, for example, this year, we had the guy that had the 64, but not the 16. And he had life burn and otherwise he should have been paid, but there wasn't any reason in the rules the commission could consider a waiver for that. So if we keep it closed, the commission's not gonna have any discretion to override the current rules. If we leave a caveat in there where an individual or a department can get on the agenda to complete their case in front of the commission about why this guy should get paid, the commission can still vote yes or no, but it gives you some deference. That's up to y'all.
So I mean, would you word it something along the line of at the discretion of the commission? I don't know.
So like right now I have for individuals to request a waiver for failure to complete training hours. So it could be for individuals to request a waiver for failure to have the right certification. Whatever, however you want to phrase it, but it would be the caveat that y'all were looking for when we were in, what town were we in? We were at your fire department, I think.
No, it was in Arlington,
Arlington.
when we were in Arlington.
When everybody was saying, oh, I have the 64, but I don't have 16. Commission said hands are tied, there's no waiver for that. So if you want to leave it that way,
I mean, we shouldn't encounter that anymore because we're not.
No, but Maribeth's right, though. We need to have a catch-all, though,
I know.
because if we don't have that catch-all.
No, I don't want UCMJ 134. All other fences not covered. Then we'll be getting 100 waivers a meeting.
well, and the comment y'all made earlier, what's the commission gonna have to do to fix rules if we don't have pre-approvals? The commission might be hearing waiver requests.
It's not on evil for another.
Well, some people have hated waivers.
So
We had commission members that voted no because it said waiver. It might have been the most beneficial waiver in the history of fire service. But there were some guys on the day that, no, they hated waivers.
and that's up to y'all. And if you don't
I
want
was a crotch shield.
any if you don't want to have any deference at all, we can leave the first.
There's no deference in here. We may have deference in chapter 2.
Right, but then we'll add a waiver component in that chapter to cover that one chapter.
So say you get 38 hours, but you're,
I start my chemo.
you start on December 1st, so you're short 2 hours.
You go out on FMLA.
And so you're short 2 hours, but you really need that $800 because now you need to buy Christmas cards for your family. Do you want to complete
Regular
that
man's
case?
10,000 a month.
Right. Do you want to complete that case to the commission and the commission says, sorry,
That's
you
not
can't-
where-
our weeks don't let us do anything about that? Or do you want to say, well, let us hear your case, probably we'll vote, who knows, tell us what you're thinking. That's up to y'all. You can do it either way. There's no right or wrong.
And there's 2 stances. You can do what Metro did a few years ago. Absolutely no waivers, you don't get the money.
No.
Hard line. Or you wait, you listen to every appeal.
Bleeding heart.
And that is like for post, that's half of our agenda every month. Like waiver requests for whether it's transfer academy, whether it's for salary supplement, whatever it is. We spend probably an hour at post every month talking about, well, my
Grandma's dog.
friend's mom, I had to check their mail that day. But it's up to you guys. There's nothing in the statute that says you have to grant any waivers.
Let me refer to my partners. David Doris.
I was about to hit my button. So I have been talked down to for applying for waivers years ago by those certain commissioners who aren't here anymore, who hated waivers. But the only reason I applied for a waiver is because the process was there for us to do so. And if other departments were applying for them, and if I didn't, I was held accountable to that. We have the rules. If I hold my department accountable, and I'm just gonna use my department, to all the rules exactly and say no, and someone who knows and goes and asks permission for a waiver gets it somewhere else in the state for the same reason I told my people no, that's where we run into the problems. For example, I know this isn't education pay. When I got a new chief several years ago, right here in Jackson, Madison County, I was ordered to ask for a waiver for a firefighter who was either a no-show and or failed the firefighter 1-2 abeyance and hazmat ops for 10 years. And in the same meeting, when one person was told you can't have a waiver to get your instructor one with less than 3 years, that waiver was given him without a single question.
It gives additional law discretion.
And then you got, well, you did it for this one,
Right.
Right.
why can't you do it?
So, but David, as far as let's just focus on EIP right now.
Correct. I'll use it as an example. We had a firefighter, had a heart transplant, came back to work, had some complications, and passed away almost 2 years ago now, in August, July, actually. I did not submit him because the rule said he was not eligible. So what happens when his family hears that someone else puts in a waiver and gets that? Because I followed the rules.
So do you see any other reason to create a waiver for EIP other than missing the March 1st submission deadline?
Get connected.
I personally, from talking to different departments, don't see any. And that's usually, as you discussed, based on, we got new chiefs, new training officers, things didn't happen the way it should have due to whatever circumstances, or bad weather hitting, such as floods or things at that certain time of year, which is already kind of part of that. I mean, I'm sure if I don't submit my program before February 25th and I just say I quit and walk out the door, our department's gonna have to ask for a waiver.
Right. I think with what we've done with the rules on chapter 7 and eliminated a lot of hurdles that we had in there previous. I think go on.
Yeah, I think 90% of your education incentive waivers are the October 1 deadline, correct?
A good portion of them. Yes.
Usually it's October 1st and March 1st.
Yeah.
But as the director stated, we pretty much should have worked out all the kinks in, I don't have the 1664 live fire, things like that by then, by the time this comes out. If you don't have it, I mean, those are the rules, you just don't have it.
And this isn't final.
Right.
We're gonna put it on the heel wall for a week or two too.
Okay.
So what does 2 say though?
It's
Factors to consider.
So those 4 things could be a waiver of anything.
Could be a waiver too.
March 1st.
Just the March 1st, that's it.
Only March 1st now.
Now, I would like to make one statement. I was asked by the Farm Association when all the flooding hit last year to request a immediate waiver on the October 1 deadline, I believe it was, because it hit right before it.
Right.
And I'll say thank you publicly to the director because she immediately tried to do that, and then neither one of us really catching the fact that I guess it didn't go with the rules. If a disaster of that magnitude hits right at a deadline like that, you know, it's pretty rough when you're trying to deal with emergencies and worrying about, did I just screw my department out of not getting something because I don't have time tomorrow to do this.
So I think as of we have infinite weather in here now, so maybe that got changed in school.
So B can be struck.
Yeah. Because you're not submitting all that.
So other than that, A, C, and D would be reasons for a waiver on
March 1st.
March 1st.
Learn about that.
And it does say not limited to.
I think the way the weather was still in here, it's just we tried to grant it from the office and not,
We had to go.
we had to go do an emergency meeting with them, and that's where the hangup was. It wasn't something I could do at my level. It had to have been,
And
then-
reinforce should stay.
Right.
Audit.
Can't change one.
See, so this is where we had 60 months, but we're telling them before they only had to keep records for 36 months.
So what do you want to do?
So I believe we put in the previous up to the last audit.
So that'd be basically everything.
No, it could be up to 60
5
months.
years, 60 months.
Yeah, it could be up to 60 months. So this actually goes with it. Yeah. It's not contradicting itself anymore.
Do you want to change this to up to the last audit or leave it at 60 months?
Well, if we leave this at 60 months, it's still contradicting itself.
Yeah, because they could have had an audit 12 months ago.
Yeah. And then 3 stays. Because every department has to be audited within every 60 months.
This is finding and it's more.
Correct. So let's verify what the in-service training verification sheets are, if we're gonna require them to be signed. Is that our rosters? What is it?
No, that's the
that's the Excel sheet.
Excel sheet at the end of the year, December 31st.
Okay.
I mean, they're attesting to taking the money. So
Right.
I see that as a good practice because that's their last chance to come clean.
Yeah.
And properly filled out may mean it's in the computer.
Right.
That's an interpretation, however they're tracking the attendance. Whether it's Target Solutions or a paper copy.
All right, so now
That's a department
3,
issue.
we took tests out. So do we need to keep 3 in there?
Nope.
Strike it.
So what records are gonna be required by, once again, we're no longer referencing NFPA standards.
We were never checking that anyways.
Right,
Strike.
What does that mean?
exactly.
Strike.
Or gone.
It was 5, it's kind of done.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt, it doesn't take away, it doesn't.
No.
Said it that way, but okay.
Yeah. I've never seen it that way either, but yeah.
Now that I know it's there. I mean, I've always said they were in compliance, so maybe I was. That's a good thing for us to take when we go do all this, so we know.
Right.
Going forward.
I think all of those can stay.
Still shows.
Yeah.
Or we won't know when they're teaching it, so
Correct.
we can't really do an unannounced visit because we don't know when they're teaching stuff. So I think 4 could be struck.
Do you want to just say you make unannounced visits to the department?
We can do that.
Take the whole thing.
I mean, who's got time?
Yeah, let's kill it.
5
5 stays.
Which is now 4.
All right, disciplinary matters.
pretty broad. This may be F and A language too.
Is there anything else that we should put in disciplinary matters?
All covered up there, revoke, modify, suspend.
All right.
Is that Abraham?
Both of those stay. What?
What?
Okay, let's go back to the beginning.
Did we just complete chapter 7?
We gotta start over.
We will,
I got chapter 6 ready for y'all too, by the way, so.
I will need to look at chapter 6 next time, or whatever y'all are ready. That 30-day waiting period.
Yes, that's on here for, it's not a very long chapter. It's pretty short.
Chapter 6 is
I mean, if,
short and sweet.
if the guys,
NFPA standards
If
and
they-
references.
if the guys feel foggy and want to tackle it, I mean,
That's,
the first page is nothing but NFPA standards anyways.
I'm the only one with a 3-hour. I'm good. I'm good.
So,
Okay.
and you can,
I- I-
for this stuff,
I'm 18 minutes from home.
I told my wife.
Second.
Off tonight anyway, so.
What does the lawyer got? Daycare?
No, that's covered. I gotta find the red lines for the.
You're the most,
these are the standards and this is it that we're gonna have once this is all said and done. Because several of them, what was it, 1,000 or 1010?
Combined,
1010, there's like 4 of them that are combined into
Yeah.
one.
which I sit on the technical, makes for 1010.
Okay. Sit on 1020 and 1080. So, you know, John Cunningham,
No name.
he's the chair of 1010.
Okay. I knew I saw the name somewhere.
John is the chair. He's a good, one of my good buddies, smoking friends with through IFSAC and whatnot. He's the chair of the Subcommittee Assembly as well.
So this, according to Chris, is the 2025 version. Then what's gonna happen in.
Okay.
So we're ending the most recent.
Perfect. Love it.
And I trust Chris, so.
Hope so. He's sitting right here. I mean. She wants to talk about it.
Yeah. And
According to Chris, as if that was like a speculative.
So, 470, 470 is good. Greg chime in at any point, so I know you gave y'all,
Say that one, say it again.
so 470, based upon what we had in our adoption reference is good.
so, Greg, real quick, where we're going with this is every place in rule between chapters 1 and 7. This is going to be the only chapter that actually references NFPA standard. All of the other chapters that actually talk about NFPA standards is going to be referenced back to this
This is what
chapter.
it needs to be.
So moving forward, when we have to do our updates for accreditation, this would be the only chapter we would have to open.
Gotcha.
So,
That makes sense.
yeah, so that way when chapter 2 or 3, 4, whenever we talk about NFPA standard, it's going to be referenced to whatever the adopted one is, and this is the adopted. So trying to make it streamlined and easy.
if there's any like 40 pages right now, standards,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
maybe 25, I may be exaggerating.
Right, so 470, that's correct.
470 is correct. So,
B is going to be 1010,
so
and that's going to be the 20,
she's got it.
23
So,
or 4.
put that right on there. Marvin,
20.
For 1010.
24.
24.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm scared to do this without red line, so. Heather, if this is accurate, I'm just gonna
That is,
take this home
that is,
and edit it. So y'all are gonna come back, so I just don't wanna do it.
Cause yeah, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1005 all got consolidated
into NFPA 1010.
into 1010.
And that's the correct name.
That's
Figured out
all
on
correct name
NFPA's website.
for this piece of paper.
Yes.
Yes.
And you need to lose that, I can know.
Okay, so then that will go under 1006. 1006 is gonna stay.
1006 stays. It was right, was it?
Correct.
Is it?
It's correct in the, on the
On this
line.
piece of paper.
Okay, all right, then
Yes.
that one's,
On that piece of paper, it's the same thing that's already in the,
Okay, and then what, the next thing I have here is 1020. So did 1021 go away?
1021 and 1041 go away.
Okay,
They're both consolidated into 1020.
you said 1041. After 1020, I have 1030. That just gets updated to 2024.
Correct.
And then 1033 stays,
Correct.
1035 and 1037 come out.
Correct. Those both got combined into 1030.
And I have 1040,
1140.
1140, I'm sorry. And then 51. So did these come out?
So
So-
Bill, to your point, as far as referencing adopted standards, when me and Heather were talking yesterday, 1403, 1500, there's not a certification coming from either one of those. If they're gonna be referenced in other, like the live fire stuff that has to meet, then I get why that might be on this list here.
So 1403, we actually issue a certification from the commission office. No,
Is it ours?
Not an accredited one.
not accredited.
not accredited, but the commission office does
Correct.
issue a 1403 certificate.
Okay,
Because we have to utilize that number in our live burns.
okay.
But I don't think we actually talk about that anywhere else in rule besides having it listed right here. I don't think it's brought up anywhere else in rule that we issue that. I mean, we do, but
Nope, but what's the name of this chapter?
adoption by reference.
No, no, what's the name of this chapter? Miscellaneous certification standards.
Fair enough.
And it's a certification that we issue out of the office.
So,
What about 1081 and 50?
so 1081, and this is just a good group discussion, we do not have anything fire brigade related. No certifications, nothing. I don't know why it's in here. Are you
Well,
good with
because-
striking it?
Back in the day,
Oh, here we go. Historically,
historically,
God,
fire brigades were at all the industrial facilities. Okay, in Piperton, you had AOC, in Millington, you had, Chemours, and, well, it's Chemours now, but you had DuPont, which were fire departments / fire brigades.
mhm.
So I'm sure Eastman Kodak had a fire brigade, right?
Y12 has fire brigade.
Right? So if I'm not mistaken, maybe at one point there was a Tennessee fire certificate that was issued as a fire brigade.
We don't anymore.
Well, if we don't anymore, then why do we have it?
So are y'all good with striking that?
To one of streams.
Is it something on the radar to be able to offer as an accreditation?
Anything's on the table as far as the certification goes. We can add, as long as there's, and even to the point of an alternate standard. It doesn't even have to be an NFPA standard. If we had something that we want to become an accredited certification, we can submit either, if we decide that there's a need for 1081 for the industrial certification, we can make that program, we can build that up. If there's not an NFPA standard for something and we say this is a certification that fits the needs of Tennessee, we submit whatever it is that we're gonna reference and what we're gonna train to. And IFSAC will accredit that as an alternate standard. Case in point, North Carolina has a certified fire investigator certification, and it is based off of an application for the fire investigator certification. But it's an application that IFSAC has accredited. It's not an NFPA standard, nothing. So we have options in that sense, but anything that's a pro qual, anything that we can come up with as an alternate standard, we can get it accredited and make it a certification as you all see fit.
David, what do you think about leaving that one in there?
I mean, when Dan King was more robustly involved,
Mhm.
Tennessee Fire Chiefs has a what do you call it, industrial fire section.
Right.
VW, Blue Oval. There are
Yeah.
industrial department, Kingsport.
Right.
Kodak. I don't know, but do we not offer a test for that today? Why would it be in the rule? Now it's easier to leave it in the rule than just try to put back in the rule later. I don't know.
Not like,
But if we leave it in rule, then we have the option to go ahead and build out a program like you're saying.
Yeah,
And
without
have
having to go back and add it back.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not hurting anything. Other than what year is that? I bet that's not the edition right now.
1081, hold on, give me one second.
It's gotta be newer. It's probably 23 or 24 at least. That's 23 was 5 years. That way, at least we get 5 years before we have to update it.
1081 is the 24 edition.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's gotta be newer than that.
And I'll double check those with you, before we finalize any of this, just the rule, years. And then,
And we do offer the 1403 certification. I'm sure it's newer than 18 as well. Because we require them to have a certified number.
Well, yeah,
to count
because
for their firefighter one.
1403 is still the 2018
Really?
edition because it's in cycle to become consolidated to 1400. They're doing like 1403, 4, 5, 7.
when is that consolidation gonna take place?
That
knows?
Well, there's the schedule, because here's the thing.
Yeah, this won't become rules until 2026 probably.
Well, no, that's why we're only doing these two
I
that
know,
we're submitting.
But it still doesn't help us. It doesn't seem like.
We're hoping just because it's these two, that this will be a quick 6-month turnaround.
David, would you say?
Look at me. Tobacco.
Yeah. But that's just it. We have to, while we're doing this, we have to think, 12 months from now.
I mean, I'm not opposed or against it, just making it open for discussion, so.
And 1500, there is no test.
Mm-mm.
Well, there is, but it's a pro board standard. You can get ISO and HSA, health and safety, HSO and ISO is pro board cert, because FDSO offers them at every conference, or you can take them in-house. They do exist, and they're off of 1500.
so do we want to leave?
looks like maybe best case scenario 2027 time period.
So if the goal of
Right.
consolidating all of this to chapter 6 was that if we had to run a rule package on just chapter 6, that would be much quicker. Because
Yeah.
it's just this, so. And we always have the option to apply an extension.
Now, Tennessee we still offer a safety officer.
We have
We have-
ASO, ASO is wrapped up in one of these others.
It's in 1500.
1521.
Yeah, which is,
The
yeah.
Not the 1500.
It's not 1500.
So we want to cut 1500?
1500 is health and safety.
Yeah,
leave it.
you never know. And it was brought in to try to force departments to look at it if they didn't do anything else. Didn't mean they were going to comply.
So that's the standards.
Yeah.
Next is
Progression.
domestic violence here.
We took it out of the other.
Right.
Because it is in law that we have to require it somewhere.
Here it is.
So we want to leave it here. Take it out.
Well, this chapter, we're talking about certifications.
Right, this is chapter, so this would be applicable to our firefighter one, firefighter two, officer, or whatever.
We're required to have it somewhere under law, so.
I don't think it's hurt anything, to be clear.
No.
So progressive testing, I've got some notes on that. Greg and I were talking about 1 and 3. We agreed that they need to go. Number 2, maybe move that to like chapter 3.
All right, so hold on. Let me tell you why that's there.
For 1.
Number 1,
All right, let's talk through.
previous. If you skipped, say, driver, PDO, AADO, FAO. Once you hit officer, you couldn't regress back to get that.
Why?
Why do we have half the rules we have?
So here's my thought on it. If you make the qualifications and you've got all the prerequisites for it, whether it's up, down,
Right, but I'm saying that's where it came from. So fire service personnel who have been certified at a specific progression level may take the examination for a lower level. So,
So was the driver operator a prerequisite for officer?
no, but
But then it's not technically lower, right? Because if it's not a if you're gonna put it in a hierarchy, a prerequisite would be something that I gotta have to go up the ladder.
agreed.
If we're in separate ladders, then it's more of a peer type,
Agreed.
which was where I wasn't understanding like what that, but I see why,
Right.
but I would also say.
can we
it
still
doesn't
strike
need to
it?
Be there.
So, yeah, we can strike it because it has no relevance today.
Right.
Okay. Number 2, if an applicant who has already achieved a level certification at a particular level under prior NFPA standards wishes to achieve certifications for those level after the date Tennessee becomes accredited, the applicant will be allowed to do so and the waiting period shall not apply. Applicant will be required to complete all requirements of the levels of certification sought. We agreed that this ought to be moved to chapter 3. It would be better suited under examination versus here in this miscellaneous certification.
We're talking progression here, so, do we really even need to have it? Honestly, because if I got my firefighter 1 under the 97 standard, if I choose to go ahead and retake my firefighter 1 today, I can do that if I want to.
It's your program, right?
Do we need to have a rule concerning that?
Will the commission issue a new certification?
Yeah.
If they take the classes and, I mean, a new seal and everything?
Yeah.
If that's just kind of common, then just go do it. Unless it's in there to explain people that that's an option if they want to do it. But even then, it could be cleaned up from the way that it's written.
And that can go into the certification piece
Right.
and not into the
Right.
into this piece.
All right, so strike 2, 3, unless otherwise prescribed the rules, applicant may progress to the next level. That's another, why is that?
Because we're talking about progression, so we may be eliminating the whole progression piece right now.
That's kind of what that was the goal. So if we
Like
strike,
the 30 days.
so let's talk about that.
It used to be 12 months and 4.
Well.
Oh, yeah, it was 12 months between 1 and 2.
Oh my gosh. So we actually had a complaint come into legislation,
It's up here, and, with an email from Steve.
but it came from Senator Bailey
Okay.
is where the complaint came from. But we've had a complaint come from legislation because of this 30-day rule. And also too, we've got in several places within rule exceptions wrote, such as ropes awareness and ops and,
All right,
hazmat.
so let's talk about He's upset because he couldn't take his officer one after taking his instructor one. So instructor one has a 3-year. Right? I have to be in fire service for 3 years before I can go ahead and take my instructor one.
Correct.
Now I have to wait 30 days to go ahead and take my officer one. So let's think about what we're doing here. With a firefighter who comes in fresh off the streets, just got done with rookie school today. Now I want to go ahead and challenge my instructor tomorrow or in 30 days.
I'm not taking it, I'm not
Well,
taking that
no.
out.
Hold on. Just follow where I'm going.
All right.
30 days after I got my firefighter two, I want to go ahead and take my instructor one. Okay? 30 days later, I want to go ahead and get my officer one. I've been on a fire department for 6 months. I've been in the fire service for 6 months. But now I'm gonna go ahead and give you an officer certification or an instructor certification when you haven't even learned the job. What we do is life and death. What we're instructing, what we're teaching, you could be the best teacher in the world, but you have to be a subject matter expert at what you're teaching. Right? How do I have that in 6 months? I don't. So if we don't have those standards set for timeframes, it's a journeyman. I have to learn what I'm doing in order to be able to teach what I'm doing or be able to lead what I'm doing. Now, there are great leaders that are born every day. Don't dispute that. But you have to be a great leader in what you're doing and knowing what you're doing. So honestly, I with all due respect, somebody who's complaining that they couldn't take an officer test 30 days after an instructor test.
But you've already got that 3-year component built in
Right,
for the instructor, so
right,
nobody's going anywhere
Right.
for 3 years.
right. So, but that's what I'm saying.
3 years,
If we're going to go ahead and kill a 30-day window in between certifications, the question then is going to come back, well, you guys killed it on this. Why do we still have to have a 3-year on instructor?
I don't think nobody argues that one. It's the 30-day, and there's already several exemptions already made within the rule where you're already exempting them from doing that.
David, you got your hand?
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, that's fine. I was waiting my turn. Being polite, imagine. So I fully agree with the 3-year on instructor one because that slows things down. We've already changed the rules because a lot of smaller volunteer departments don't have certified instructors where they can just back to local jurisdiction. But the fire academy teaches a combined fire officer 1 and 2 class. Why is there a 30-day waiting period for someone who's been here long enough that want to challenge both tests while it's fresh in their minds to do that, since the commission has reduced the waiting period for retesting down to 15 days? It kind of contradicted, but the one that has the biggest hang up is recruit program. I've had recruit firefighters denied to take firefighter 1 because they failed my hazmat ops test the first time. By the time they took the second time and passed it, my other recruits were taking firefighter 1. Now I've got to let him wait for the next test event local to take firefighter. We're doing all the training in recruit school. They're gaining no new experience in the recruit program, waiting. Now, a lot of departments like us, we were doing EMR. As soon as they graduate, finish fire, they're going straight into EMT, and they're waiting 30 days to take firefighter 2. Now they're right in the middle of an EMT class. Those do hinder us.
So what if we use the 30-day from the initial test?
It would still affect your recruit programs because if anybody fails anything during a recruit school, even at the academy, now they've got to wait 30 days to retest. I mean, you're always going to have recruits that fail the first time.
50 days retest. And if they pass on that retest, then it's retro to the date of the first test for that 30-day window. I'm just spitballing here, so.
Then it's a tracking nightmare. I mean, which one?
Yeah.
Because if I've already
creating
tested
more
again, I'm already past that
registration.
point anyway.
I'll let you come work in the office for a few days.
I visit you enough twice a year, three
Yeah.
times a year. I'm
But
good.
I will speak specifically on recruit programs, and then for my guys who do go and take the combined classes that have a 1 and a 2. Again, like she said, that there's other allowances for some of the technical stuff to hurry up and do things, but on those, it's like, let's hit the break between Fire Officer 1, Fire Officer 2. What is a fire officer gonna learn in 30 days to get prepared for Fire Officer 2?
I agree. I would say there should be a year between, or at least, a time frame in between 1 and 2. And then 2 and 3. 3 and 4. It's just, when with this window, the way it sits, after 3 years, within within 48 months, we can go ahead and go from walking into the fire service to being an officer 4. Within 48 months. Not even 5 years on the job, we could be an officer 4.
Actually, Commissioner Scott, in that case, and I'm not going to say a fire department, but you've got people coming out of rookie class with instructor 1 and fire officer 1 in most cases because of the progression has been shortened. I argued this years ago when it was changed to 15 and 30. From what we come through, most of us sitting here doing this, we had to wait a year in between.
1 and 2.
Correct. I
Mhm.
argued it. I think it was wrong that we changed it, but there was only a few of us that argued it. But there has to be
Correct.
something put in place between Officer 1, like you just said, Officer 1, 2, 3, 4, and even instructor. Somebody 6 months on the job, you said it, should not be able to do an instructor class and take an instructor test and be able to come out of being 6 months on the job. There has to be something put in place. Now, an AHJ can do it. We can do it and say you have to wait a year, but who's to say that they don't work for another fire department and that other fire department, per se, says, okay, you can do it, and y'all don't have anything there that stops them. That's my 2 cents.
But I mean, realistically, how many people are gonna come out and go take all those classes that quickly? I mean, we all know that.
There's people that we see almost on a daily that they come out, they're already wanting to be that lieutenant first day out of rookie school. And what do I need to do to have the qualifications to be that? And they haven't even learned the job yet. But they're already.
I'm with Commissioner Scott on this one because being on the West End and having 2 large fire departments on the West End, we see it. I've seen it.
David, you're sitting awfully quiet. Windrow, not the worst.
Well, I think Alabama lets them test not saying how, because my feelings about Alabama in general, but
Right.
their fire school, I think they take firefighter 2 before they leave. I'm pretty sure DOD fire school does it now.
DOD fire school, you grab fire 1, 2, hazmat awareness ops, PPE product control, and airport firefighter.
Fire all in one swoop,
3 months.
and they're all accredited.
Yes.
I don't know that firefighter 1 and 2 is not a different animal now that the academies, Metros is 20 weeks.
Usually 15 to 16 weeks.
So they are ready for firefighter 2 when they finish. They're not allowed to take it
They gotta wait 30 days.
30 days. I get the waiting periods between the higher level, call them higher level certification. Think it's becoming antiquated with the longer academies to have the waiting period. in between, because you probably met the JPRs in the 14th week, let's just say, for firefighter one. And maybe you do some more JPRs towards, as you finish the academies. I don't know. We want to be support the customer's needs. And I know most paid departments want them at firefighter two as fast as they can get them there, which is 30 days later. The only downside is if you're sending 5 from Lawrenceburg or 2 from Lawrenceburg to TFACA, you got to find a test, and they're fairly frequent for those 2 members in 30 days, because they'll want to take it as soon as they can to retain the knowledge, because they've already done the practical. They're just waiting and done the live burn. They're just waiting for that 30 days to be up. So is it time for us to be like Texas, Alabama, Kentucky, and have that firefighter not have that waiting period in between those two? I could see that. I don't have a problem with some of these others waiting. These people, they obviously have no respect for the tradition, history, and the culture. They just want to be chief tomorrow. So
Oh, paper chasing. So.
yeah, they're paper chasing.
Well,
That's what I hate about
this
religion.
particular individual was, they were trying to, he was going to be taking a chief's position, and they needed him to be certified to that.
That's not our
You
fault.
know, the day you start planning for your promotion is the first day you get on the job,
I did.
okay? And if you plan to fail, you're failing to plan, or you fail to plan, you're planning to fail.
Yep.
Okay,
Use that to me. Again.
so we,
Now, is there exceptions? There's always I'm old enough, there are no absolutes. Let's say a guy's worked for Hill Tennessee Electric on bucket trucks for the last 25 years.
Mhm.
Now they want to be a firefighter. They know theoretically aerial operations better than our people because they do it every day. We one time hired Hill Tennessee Electric to teach operations around high wires. Oh, they're just electrical. Yeah, they go around them every day. You go around it once every 3 years and you're the expert. What if you do hire somebody that's an SME? Somebody comes over from the state fire marshal's office. Russell Robinson comes to work for you. How do you, I mean, there are exceptions. You hire an SME. Now that's more likely to happen in a bigger, smaller. Hire somebody, Knowlesville has no chief's position, so you're not hiring in. So I don't know. I mean, this is a tough one.
and seeing this, we couldn't even drop a waiver in this one because by the time they request the waiver,
It's
our
already
next
passed.
meeting.
They've already, their 30 days is
Yeah.
over.
So,
Subcommittee.
Go ahead, David.
I was just gonna add, like I said, the 3-year waiting period for instructor, I don't even care if you add a year for officer. We don't let people get promoted driver here until 5 years, but then they're acting company officers. But the ops to firefighter one, and firefighter two does create a hindrance when now I've got someone who had a little issue and hiccup and is behind and is knee deep in the middle of EMT school and still trying to go back and take tests for that. It creates it harder for them. And scheduling for us.
you know, I can see that, especially with rookie schools and you know, the different fire academies where it would allow them, like for mine, when I have somebody come through, as I have them do HMA. As soon as they do HMA, they're testing out of it. Then we roll right into HMO. After they get done with that, they're testing out of it. And so
Well,
they do their 64, they're testing their firefighter one at that point.
Yeah. and
I can,
practicals, you can even do firefighter 1 and 2, HMA, HMO, every practical on the same day if you want to.
you could, and you
But
take
there's a
HMA,
30-day waiting
HMO.
period.
today.
Saying, like, y'all got some exceptions y'all already got built into here.
But the thing is, we don't, you can't do 2 100 question tests in a 3-hour block. We do 150 for FAO or HMA and HMO. But now we're having you sit for 200 questions in a 3-hour block.
But that's, so talking about the questions, that's gonna be another discussion about how many
Right.
questions that we're gonna be
That's
giving.
policy.
That's policy, and so that's something that we will work through.
Right.
But currently, 100 questions.
I just, is this something you'd like to leave to the discretion of the director? A 30-day waiting period unless otherwise waived by the director?
No, because then she's gonna get bombarded with phone calls on a weekly basis for people saying, hey, I want to go ahead and test this at this next testing event. I want to knock out both of these tests. Or I want to take this test on Monday and then this test on Wednesday. She'll get hammered with phone calls nonstop.
So this isn't just like a one guy that got mad.
No.
No, this is all the, yeah, and so even to David's point, I mean, I can't tell you how many recruit schools we've gone round and round about with this, and even TPAC for that matter, because this impacts them. Between the HMA, HMO, Fire One, I mean, they only run a 10-week recruit school. And so it is very difficult to try to get all that in within those 30-day windows.
So do we need to make a chart of
We have a flow chart.
the progression of things and how many, do we need to put in a rule, how many specific waiting days between each thing? Make some of them 15, some of them 30, some of them years.
That'll be up to,
Well, here in the progression, because that's where we're at. We can say, there's no waiting period between HMA and firefighter 2. 3-year, or then we could do, either, because we don't like using, years. So we can then say 6 months between firefighter 2 and PDO, AADO, FAO. Okay, or make it 12 months, whatever. But, in my SOGs in my department, they have 18 months to get their firefighter 2 if they come in with nothing. They have to also, within 24 months, get at least their PDO, AADO, but then they can't sit for a driver promotion until 3 years.
don't crucify me, but is this something that really should be left up to the AHJ as to when they test?
Oh, I agree completely, but there's too many times, and we've seen it over and over again, where the AHA tries pushing so much back on us, for us to be the bad guy. For us to disqualify them from hiring somebody because their certifications are expired or what have you. So I would love to be able to leave a lot of things in the AHJ's hands, but there's just some things where we actually have to have the control.
And I think progression is ours.
Yeah.
Does it look like this? Maybe not. Maybe what she's typed up, there's no waiting period between, that's really 4 tests. Then, the
HMA,
And when does the
HMO,
three-
Fire One, Fire Two.
when does the 3-year clock start on instructor? From the day you receive your firefighter 2 or from the day of employment?
They have
I
employment.
always
It's the
face
date-
off Dave
actually,
employee.
Okay,
no, it's the date of entrance to the fire service is how it's listed. So,
they could have been a volunteer for 4 years.
correct,
And they've already met the minimums.
correct.
Correct.
So are you wanting to exempt out, leave this rule, but then exempt out HMA through firefighter 2 as like a subparagraph?
No, this is almost I almost want to say this is the hill I want to die on. Because we've lost that journeyman situation for these firefighters. And we're allowing them to progress too quickly through the higher levels.
Well, no, we have a 3-year wait on fire instructor
Well,
one
what-
today.
But then right after that,
So what if you change the fire instructor 1 into it? 3 years after acquiring firefighter 2. Instead of it being the date of
North Carolina, and just as an example, North Carolina, you're eligible for instructor 1 3 years after you get your firefighter certification. North Carolina doesn't break it up, fire 1, fire 2, it is one certification. So essentially they're firefighter 2. You gotta wait 3 years after that, then you're eligible to take your instructor 1. If you take instructor 1 before that 3 years, you have to take it again after the 3 years. You don't, there's no getting around that 3-year rule. Officer, you're eligible, now you can take the class and it'll sit on your transcripts until you hit that time period. But for officer, it's 3, 5, 7, and 9 years. So 3 years officer 1, 5 years officer 2, 7 years officer 3, 9 years officer 4.
Wow. I like. But
and that wouldn't be, and I'm not necessarily, that would not be hard to keep up with in the office because we could base it, like if you're gonna put, some time between officer 1, officer 2, we could base that off of, the time frame between the awarded certificates. So that wouldn't be super hard to keep up with.
well, I like the 3 years after receiving your firefighter certification. Because if it's a volunteer department, they don't have their fire 1, they can go get their CFI. Okay, so there's that workaround for that portion. But to have a 3-year wait in between receiving their firefighter 2 and their instructor 1. But can I get certified as a fire investigator?
But I can get certified as a fire investigator without ever seeing a fire.
That's true. We don't check. Not prerequisite. I think firefighter 2s are prerequisite, right, for fire investigator. Believe it is, believe it is. Still may not have been no fire. Some departments don't play a lot of fire.
Right.
Or even in Metro, if you're at Bellevue, you might not see a fire every 2 years. 37.
Those positions were some of the most
Fire
coveted.
investigators, according to the document that's online, fire investigator is a standalone certification.
Okay. We probably did that for the big departments that they're not firefighters. For the customer's sake.
It says must complete a approved course, complete a practical, and take a 100-question written test.
So do we want to chew on this and come up with some language for the next meeting? Because this sounds like we might need other opinions besides the people.
In this room.
You want to talk to your people and I'll come back with everybody can come back with a proposal.
To see.
Okay.
So then that leaves reciprocity as the last section of sets.
Bill had that all fixed. This section.
Me?
One, 1, 2 section.
No, I had the chapter 5.
Oh. Actually, big, probably.
Yeah, it's it.
2, 3, 4. I only had 4 notes on reciprocity. B, the one I had, the first one I had was on B. Documents that the applicant has not been separated from the fire service for more than 60 months from the date of the applying for the reciprocity. And the only reason I bring that up is, I know in current rule that if they're out of the fire service for
60 months.
60 months, that their certifications go away. But again, we're at the mercy of the departments keeping up with accurate records, which they're not. And so we really don't have any way to just be yanking and pulling people's certs.
Well, when we dive into those in the next batch, that's some of the questions, because outside of the state of Tennessee, my IFSAC and Pro Board seals
It's good forever.
is good forever.
Correct.
Unless somebody has emailed IFSAC or Pro Board directly to revoke them.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So if you think that's the direction we're gonna go, could we go ahead and just remove this out of this section?
Well, you've been to the meetings lately. I mean, there is I think a long-term push, there will be CEU requirements and standard, when the standard changes, you'll have to
There's
take the
been a lot
test again.
underground rumblings at the NFPA level, from my understanding, of wanting to work in.
FDSOA already does it. If your ISO certificate expired, like mine in 2018, they're no longer recognized by Pro Board because I didn't take the new standard test.
And to that point, 1033, fire investigator, there's now a requirement, and I can research it and get you the exact verbiage. But it is that there's gonna be a requirement for 33 hours prior to being able to like take that class. And what that 33 hours, it was a big discussion at the Pro Board conference. I don't know if you remember them all debating that in that open forum, but
Probably CFI stuff or.
something along those lines. But like, what does that look like? Does everybody get to just pick and choose what those 33 hours are? Is it something super easy? Is it as complicated kind of as you want it to be? Whatever that looks like. But that's kind of that first line of slipping in time requirements,
Right.
possible recertification stuff at the NFPA level.
Downside, do you draw a line somewhere in the sand? If somebody left, went and ran an orphanage in Africa for 8 years.
David, they're not keeping up with their rosters. Like, we don't know when.
I'm talking about, I go to, and it really should be on the AHJ. If I'm
Yes.
hiring this person back, I shouldn't hire them if I'm not comfortable. I'm saying, in an ideal world, I as the chief should not hire them if they've not done any training in the last 8 years, let's just say.
Don't disagree with that.
Or put them through a lateral refresher.
Refresher, which we don't offer.
No, but the HJ,
Could,
right.
but I think somewhere there has to be a line in the sand. Is that line in the sand 120 months, 60 months? Ooh, yeah, I mean, this is a tough one because technology evolves faster than that. If somebody's been out 8 years, they don't know what an ion lithium battery will do. Right. If you try to put water on it, or if that's just an example. Again, there's certain never expires yet. I think NFPA Pro Board someday will go there, or IFSAC. We're the entity that's supposed to raise the level of professionalism. This one's always a tough one because they're not ready for a waiver.
So
What do you got?
I've been over this with, I believe Josh is on here, and talks with the director. I have one on my Cadus account that when we activated him on our Cadus account, and I knew that he had been out for more than 10 years out of the fire service because he retired. But when we reactivated him, everything come back. All of his certifications, all the way back to firefighter 3, his instructor, his fire officer, everything come back. And you're right, standards had changed in that time frame from him retiring to us reactivating. We had him go through the 16-hour class. He come to y'all in Arlington and tried to get his stuff back, but it still shows him, or still shows his fire 1 or fire 3. I can actually pull him up right now and look at him, and it still shows him active. Everything, it shows him active. Now, all of his certifications. And I'm still waiting to get an answer. Me and Josh talked before I went on vacation. Yes, we are going to write a letter to y'all, but this is the problem that we're having. Some of us are keeping up with our Cadus accounts. You have some that's not. But this is going to be an ongoing problem if we can't figure out how to fix it.
What about the person we hire from Texas, Michigan, wherever? Again, the AHJ should have done some due diligence on the front end. If they're hiring them as a certified person, what is post is 5 years, they're gone, right?
So if
They have
you,
to do a transition
if
academy no
you,
matter what,
if you come to the state, you have to go to transition.
and even if you're licensed.
If you have been out of service 3 years, you have to go to transition. If you've been out of service 7 years, you've got to go back to basic. And the chiefs are, and the sheriffs are held accountable. If your ACADIS is not updated, I've tried to decertify a sheriff January because his ACADIS was just.
We have a different standard of care.
But
There should be-
there is a punishment for them if their ACADIS is
We,
not updated.
we don't, like, there's
Right.
nothing.
Right.
There will be when we get done.
How are we gonna enforce that with these training officers if people make?
Salary something. Help, VIP.
Suspension from, commission programs.
I'm not saying that's the answer, that's an answer.
Yes.
That's an answer.
As we do this,
there's
as we go through, we're gonna be putting teeth in there.
There's rumbling outside of us with the state fire marshal's office of their rosters to their department recognition.
Cause yeah, there's some departments that keep it flawless, you know, the guy leaves, ding, 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 ding. There's some departments ain't touched it since they entered them. Or they're in multiple departments.
Where each month I go through mine, keep it up.
Cause like, we have volunteers that we've gotten 18 of our volunteers hired Memphis to.
Right.
Virginia. You think we took them out? Maybe, I'll look at CADIS. I'm talking about a smaller department.
Well, we had some that said training officer before didn't take them out because he didn't want their certs to disappear. These people have been retired for years and years and years, even maybe even become, deceased, and they were still listed as active.
What's Stephen saying?
But on a regular basis, I speak with chiefs and training officers that haven't heard of ACADIS, so the records are definitely not being updated.
They don't even know what it is.
Straight out of East Tennessee.
Yep, that's right.
So they don't put their in-service training in ACADIS assigned to the individual.
You're talking the departments that actually participate. We're talking everybody else.
Yeah, this is certification standard here.
So
But even still though,
the difference between post and fire. Post, they don't let their officers know what their ACADIS numbers are. They actually handle their ACADIS period. Because each department has that one person who is assigned to that training.
Right.
How many volunteer police departments do you have?
And so that's not, and that's what I'm sitting here asking about the individual certification. Because your volunteer agency, your volunteer department is not gonna have somebody who, I hear that they don't have internet at their volunteer fire department.
that's quite possible.
There's
But
high
the,
probability.
But the career department that is tied to city HR, there's no reason they couldn't have a guy whose job is to pull a guy off of the case every time they quit.
oh yeah, well, I mean,
Agree.
I agree, but even the department I came from,
Didn't always have
what I just told you, that was the story that came out of there. When I
Yeah.
cleaned it up, there was people on that roster that had been dead for many, 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 many years and were still listed as active. And he was a paid captain to take care of that.
And does the commission need to teach people more about ACADIS? Is it a knowledge gap?
I think you could only teach the career. I don't think there's any hope with the volunteer
Yeah.
side of this.
Because
If the career would keep it clean, it would help.
if you have a coordinator that is in East Tennessee and there's an agency a department that calls and says, hey, I'm confused about ACADIS. Can he go there and help show them what to do?
That's Stephen.
That's his job. That's what he's supposed to be doing.
Okay. So you have one for each,
Great issues.
and there's a ton. So it's probably
The
cool.
career guys, for the most part, aren't too bad. I don't say too bad.
The bigger problem with reciprocity, because we're in reciprocity section, is the coming in from out of state. That's a bigger
Because
challenge.
proving that somebody has been in fire service in the last 5 years
is hard.
out of state would be on the AHJ, because that's that's you.
No, but they send the reciprocity to your office.
Yeah. But if you're hiring a new career or volunteer fire person and they say, oh, I have this experience, isn't it your job as the AHJ or the
It should
chief to background check and make sure that's legitimate?
It should be, it should be. They want to dump it, like you said earlier, some on us. And in these times, you can't find volunteers, so you'll take a warm body. You will. And live with it, because it's just what we do. It's volunteer agencies.
So
We're desperate.
is there a way to check, say someone comes in with a IFSEX firefighter 2 certification? Is there a way to check to see when they got their most recent certification
Yeah, that's not the problem. It's what have you been doing?
for the last 5
But
years?
like,
Yeah, because my certification's from,
Yeah.
my firefighter certification is from 1997.
yeah, mine's from 83.
There's-
It could be a big gap.
Yeah,
There's no benchmark, isn't it? If you don't progress, then there's no state that eight or whatever.
yeah. I mean, right, like if I've got follow-on certifications that show like within 2 years of something.
And see, Pro Board is easy because they actually have an online database.
By the last four
If that, you can't.
You gotta
probably, or call. You can call and say,
We do. I mean, typically what we would do is if somebody came from Tennessee to North Carolina, I would call and say, hey, can you verify this certification?
Right.
Then,
Pro Board is much easier. You use the last four. You look up my 8 Pro Board search right now.
So if we're
They're old though.
if we're talking about somebody coming to the state, if we're talking, they've worked in fire service in the last 60 months. What,
So his,
we want to have the rule for the purpose of having the rule to encourage people to do, even if we don't enforce it. It just to encourage people to do it.
well, hold on, there, it may already be in here. At one time in reciprocity, the applicant was also supposed to submit a letter from their previous department on the department letterhead from that chief as far as their service dates.
Well, what it says is, commission receives proof of the applicant's residency in Tennessee or a letter of support and sponsorship or employment from a fire chief or recognized fire department employing or appointing the applicant.
Yeah, that's basically me saying, hey,
Yep,
I
that's
want to hire this person.
Check their background.
Can you verify? Or actually, can you go ahead and grant a reciprocity based on what we're submitting? But there was at one time another, and it may have been on the application itself for reciprocity, that they had to submit a letter from the previous.
Rob, are you still
Mr.
on?
Chair,
Someone else has a question here. Chief orientation is required for all fire chiefs. Is ACADIS not covered in this class?
Speak to that. In the ones that I've been teaching, yes, I cover it but prior to that, I have no idea.
I don't remember being in.
It was not prior to you, no.
Okay, well, just FYI, I cover it in all my fire chief orientation classes now, so.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question or a statement.
Go ahead.
All right, so on the form itself, when you go in to submit reciprocity, because I've had to submit a couple recently, it makes you submit all of this evidence. I even have to, if it's one of my personnel who did something through DOD that's been with us for 20 years, have to fill out that block and submit something or it won't take it, to include the driver's license. So the process itself, all of that documentation is supposed to be submitted for proof of employment in a couple different places. Question I have, and it may have just been an oversight. I sent it to our West Tennessee rep. The couple of reciprocities I just received recently, one was a firefighter paramedic from Florida. The other was a DOD certification, which is IFSAC Pro Board. The letter that they receive showing they have reciprocity doesn't have a name on it. It's like a blanket form. And the other part is, it's always been this way. If I go in and look in a CADIS, it will say, yes, they have reciprocity, but there's no actual document if they lose that letter that we can pull up, or if something happens in Acatus and it disappears and we don't get a letter to put in their training records, because it doesn't come to us anymore. And the last one is like my Florida guy. Firefighter 1 and 2 encompasses hazmat awareness and operations like we used to. But if I try to submit reciprocity for awareness, I don't know about now with the new person doing this, those have been rejected, and we'll get a firefighter 1 and 2 reciprocity, but no hazmat awareness or ops. And then if they need something in the future, like technician, they've got to go back and go through that training.
Gregory, you doing reciprocity now?
No.
Greg,
Oh, Rob is.
Rob's still doing it.
Okay.
So, but from an accreditation model, there has to be a reciprocity policy, right?
Correct.
And some of this stuff is coming right out of, maybe not word for word.
From an accreditation standpoint, like with IPSAC, it says you have to have a policy, right?
Doesn't say what the policy
If
is.
your policy says we do not do reciprocity, that's
That's
your
your
policy. So whatever that looks like,
We have to do.
we just do. And all that they're gonna look for is whatever we're doing is what our policy says we're doing. They don't wanna see that, we don't do
We
reciprocity.
may, it's like any HR expert said, you may have the worst policy, but if you follow it all the time, you're defensible, even if it's a terrible policy.
You want to make it so fun? There's a lot
Cause-
of caveats that
I think this was chiefs wanting this agency, this body again to enforce something, they didn't wanna,
they didn't want to be the bad guy,
or they didn't wanna assume the liability.
right? They want.
Nobody wants to assume liability, everybody wants to subrogate liability.
Greg comes in from out of state and calls Rob and says, I want reciprocity, or his new chief calls and says, we want to apply for reciprocity for this year. What paperwork has to be turned in?
He's gotta have
A copy of all of his certificates.
That he wants.
driver's license, letter from the chief or the department.
Copies of either an FSAC or Pro Board seal at this point. The problem we ran into early on in the process, Michigan, California, and Florida weren't issuing seals
There's a lot of states that don't.
still, and that's problematic for people that come here that want to be chief. And I say, there's nothing that prohibits the department from accepting your training. You're ineligible for salary supplement after the third year. That's a different animal. They confuse the two all the time. My chief, that I worked for recently, he had all Michigan certs. Didn't mean he didn't have the training, but he didn't have a seal. So he had no Tennessee certs, but the city manager accepted his training as valid from his career department he came from.
So is it as easy as the firefighting commission having the individuals sign something that says, I have worked in the fire service in the last 5 years? Or
Attestation statement.
I attest that my last date of employment in fire service was October of 2023.
And so that way, when you come to find out that that was actually wrong, we could actually go ahead and bring charges up
Yeah,
against
perjured himself. or herself.
falsification, documentation.
Because if our problem is just not being able to verify it, we should be able to take these people at their word if they're willing to say that. And then if we find out later that's not true.
Unfortunately, it's usually after a catastrophic event you find out.
Right, and there's
David, did you have something
gonna
else
be
to
people
say?
that lie about everything, but we can't predict every single way they might lie about.
You
No, I
just
think
do
that
it.
was from earlier, sorry.
Like if it's in our rules and we ask them their last daily service and they lied, they violated the rule and they lied. Or we can,
It's hard to enforce.
it's hard to find out if it's true or not, but right now it's in our rule and we're saying, okay, here's your accreditation for reciprocity. Or here's you can be a firefighter in Tennessee. If it's as easy as what was your last date of employment in the fire service in North Carolina, fill in the blank, sign under penalty of perjury. Have we covered ourselves with reciprocity better than we're doing right now?
So I just moved here from a small town in eastern North Carolina. I'm really good friends with the fire chief. I was quote unquote on their roster, but I was not actively involved. I was never home. My job required me to be all over the state, all over the place. I could easily said, David, write me a letter that said I was here for, 5 years. What, at what point does that become, would we be able to charge him for writing a false letter?
But if he's willing, like, to put you on his roster, I think that we probably have that in Tennessee too. Like,
Oh,
if we have people that are just on
This-
the roster.
This really goes back to, they want us to be the bad guy. It's really it really should be on the AHJ to make sure that if the person is holding that level of certification, that the person is trained up to the level or updated.
Unless we want to do like posts and put more teeth in.
We've got a hand up. Josh,
Hey, everybody doing okay?
Yeah,
Josh, good to see you,
it's
buddy.
awesome.
I mean, my question would be just with the limited resources we have, is it, worth the energy focus on this issue? We all agree it should be a AHJ responsibility. There's going to be lots of ways around it. Is it worth that battle? And, if you've got somebody who has been out of the fire service for a while, who's coming back, you're almost guaranteeing them they're not going to continue to progress if they have to start back from square one. So this doesn't really apply to the section we're on, but in the other section, if you've got a guy who's a good firefighter and has been for 20 years and isn't, able to retain his certifications, then he's not going to start back from square one either. So I think we're trying to police something that isn't, our responsibility. And two, we're probably discouraging some firefighters who, when they come back or they move into the state, would, continue to progress and continue to update their training, versus if they know they have to start back at square one, that's never going to happen for them. Certainly on the volunteer side.
I heard that all the time in North Carolina, because folks come from New York and not have an accredited certification that have been doing it for 20, 30 years. And I always had to tell them, sorry, can't do nothing with this.
Yes.
And they're like, we're hurting for volunteers. We're hurting for this. We're hurting for that. And you're telling me you can't do nothing. That's exactly, unfortunately, what I'm telling.
And we've been telling them for years. Here too. Well, I mean, so does that mean the only thing we really take out is B? We still want a copy of their cert to give them responsibility.
Absolutely, yeah.
We want a letter saying, hey, this person's at Knowlesville Fire as a volunteer now.
I want to know, I want to see your certs,
You want the application.
application, and I want to know that you live here.
So really, you're only getting rid of B,
Yes.
but that is the same somewhere else.
It's B for 3 also. The applicant has not been out of the fire, so it repeats again.
Is that only in the reciprocity standard, or is that in the progression too?
No, it's not in progression, but is it somewhere?
So is this
Somewhere.
proposing taking away the verification of that 5-year break?
Well, I think the
Just for-
AHJ would still want to do it.
David, right now, we're just talking about reciprocity, but I think that's kind of where we were headed with, for future purposes for other chapters, so.
Well, that was my next question, is because then it's back where it used to be. It's easier for out-of-state personnel to keep their certifications and be out of the fire service than people who live in the state.
How do you,
Because the in-state.
So
are
if I leave
supposed
the
to-
service here for 5 years, starting July 1, 3 years right now, my certifications expire.
right, and like I said, that's what we're trying to get, that's in another chapter that
That's in a different
we're
chapter.
gonna try to get rid of that at a later
Okay.
date. Right now, we're
Alright.
just talking about reciprocity for people coming in, so yes, I understand
Yeah.
but we're just trying to get 6 and 7 wrapped up and put a bow
Okay.
on, so. But that is the ultimate goal.
And I mean, this may be one of those where at a Tennessee Firemen's Association annual conference and the fire chiefs, we asked this question of the customer. I mean, if they're strongly in favor or not, then we can't do this in a bubble and leave our customers out. I don't think. I think Firemen's Association, and David can speak to that, would be in favor of doing away with it. I think the fire chiefs would tell you they're not. That'd be a fair assessment. And they are our customers in the end. We're supposed to be, they suggest, they're the ones that give our names to get us appointed to this board to act on their stead. So I think we should at least ask the question, at least have an open session. If they want to come, fine. If they don't, then that means they don't care. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. Because I think we'll get some uproar from the older chiefs or the more
Right.
aggressive chiefs. They don't want to see any standard watered down. That'll be their argument. The Firemen's Association would say yes, and the volunteer and VFC would probably say yes. Joshua, right?
Right.
So
And-
there are competing interests here.
Well, but I mean, we need to be able to say to the chiefs, we think you should have your own standard. It's just not this body's responsibility to enforce it for you.
Set your standard. Right. Because according to the law, you can hire somebody off the street and put them on the truck too. There's nothing to stop that. Now, if they want salvage supplement, they got to meet certain criteria, but there's no law that says now I think it's criminal, if maybe not civil. I would never hire somebody as the chief and put them on a truck until they went to rookie school, but that's me. I don't know that.
No, so it's the 16 hour.
Well, that's true. Yeah, there is a 16-hour, but that's criminal to me too. You should go 40, 400, 240 something. But that's me. That's not, I can't enforce that.
Right.
But I think on this, checking this out, the fire chiefs would say no. The firemen's would say yes. The Tennessee Professional Firefighters would say yes. Your larger departments, absolutely, because they're pulling from Baltimore and Seattle, these places people are wanting to leave.
I don't, as far as this 5 years, I don't think this is gonna be a problem. I don't perceive this as being an issue that we deal with very often anyways. It's more of our own in-house people that we have a problem with the 5 years. It's not people coming from out of state for asking for reciprocity. Because most of those people are coming from the fire service at wherever they are to
Yeah.
try to get
That
in.
was our job.
Yeah. This is
They're
not,
coming from somewhere else.
this is not an issue that we have a problem with the outside people. It's our own people that we have within the state.
Where they were out for 5 years.
But like David said, earlier, we can prove theirs. I can't prove a North Carolina guy or a Missouri woman that comes here. We're not checking it. Where we can go into Cadus and check a Tennessee person moving from Bell Buckle to Knoxville. It is an unfair standard for the in-state person.
Yeah, we
And
can
that's exactly why I asked that question, because several years ago, that was an issue, is if you're out of service 3 years in the state, you lost everything, but if you came in reciprocity from out of state, they would just give it to them. And it was harder on our own state employees than it was coming in from out of state.
If we visit this in another chapter and at a later date get rid of it, then it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it can be gone in this chapter. You already read mine? It's already gone.
And since
We can
I
do-
missed your discussion on 7 earlier, but did y'all go ahead and remove it out of chapter 7 as well?
It was an N7 for reciprocity.
For EIP, I think it was in there, but it didn't really make sense for it to be in there for EIP. The 5-year rule, I think.
Oh, we took, all those gone.
Yeah.
Those had those dates, March 2009, March 27. Yeah, all those are out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Because everybody has a different date, like Mary Beth pointed out. If somebody starts today, that's their clock. It's not the department's clock.
Right.
That's a career or volunteer. Because some departments have been in the system since it started, so you can't punish an individual.
Right.
So the other one I had was 5 and 7. For progressive purposes, the certification, this was the question he had. So we have listed on their date of certification. So
The date of recognition of the certification shall be used, the date of certification. So if I submit my reciprocity on June 5th and it's approved, my effective date as far as being a certified firefighter in the state of Tennessee is June 5th, not the date that I got my certification. Am I reading that
Because
correct?
that's the way, I went and pulled somebody that I had from Nashville that got reciprocity, and every one of his reciprocities was listed the same date.
Right, because that's when he submitted all, his whole packet.
Right, we're not giving them credit for when they actually acquired the certification. It was just when,
And you don't technically give them the certification.
We don't.
You give them a letter that says
We
you're
recognize
recognized here, you
Correct.
can progress from here.
Correct.
right, but it on their,
But to that, the person that made the comment a little bit ago about having to start over, if we get a guy from Mississippi that moves in here that was certified June 5th of 24, he meets that 3-year requirement to go take his instructor one, but if we make the date of his effectiveness June 5th, 2025, now he's got to wait till
3 years.
2028.
so you
Again, these anomalies will clear up. I mean, people, again, somebody like me, my certs ain't got, well, my DODs do. But my Tennessee certs, I got firefighter 2 in 1996. Well, I got firefighter 2 in Florida in
David, stop
1983.
dating yourself.
Yeah, I'm dating. I mean, but there are some of us dinosaurs out here. I do have some FFC seals too, because DOD was lavishly handing those out when we converted. If you were old enough, you got instructor 3 and officer 4.
There you go.
I got them. FFC seal.
right, but I mean,
For
if you,
EIP, it helps them because it would start their date, and they would give them the 3 years, and say they only have firefighter 1 in their career, and they need to get that firefighter 2. So the date of coming to the state
Helps them.
helps them.
Those early entry people, it hurts those that are trying to go instructor 1 and 3.
Right, but if you come with firefighter 2 and want to progress,
It wouldn't matter because you already have your firefighter 2 for EIP purposes, so.
right, but then why would we not give them the date of their IPSAC certification?
it's a good question. I don't know.
Question.
That's what we're asking is why have
I think it was a mistake to combine those things. I think for EIP, it should be the date you get reciprocity. But I think for,
Right, there should be two dates. It should be the date that you recognize what I brought to the table when I moved here. But from a certification standpoint,
It's the date
it
of
should
the
be dated off of my
firefighter
accredited
2.
certification.
I can already beat that in 2 years. 1 year later, I take instructor. If you do it the day the package is submitted, that's when their 3-year clock starts.
And then you get all these guys that are like, I'm not gonna do all this. You know what I mean? I'm not waiting 3 more years. I'll go find something else to do because I now can't progress for 3 more years.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
So from a reciprocity standpoint, it'll be the date.
of the original issuing
It says
of the
right here,
certification?
It brings the EIP into reciprocity.
Right, so with that, with the correction there, reciprocity date will be for progression would be from issuance date of the actual certificate. We need to go back into chapter 7 and add the reciprocity component in there to show from the date of acceptance in Tennessee as their start clock.
The last one I had was chapter number 7. The commission shall not recognize a certification issued by a fire department in Tennessee, even if the fire department is accredited by a national accrediting agency. And I kind of wanted to bring you in on that because,
What was my question?
Are there any?
yeah,
Are there any?
I don't.
There's
think
not.
so.
No.
Nashville would be, or Memphis would be your only option. So
So-
pull that off.
My question was, is it just for fire departments or is it for any agency? And to that point being, ISTAC is built around jurisdiction. So with the empowerment of the state and this agency being the accredited body for the state, ISTAC will not accredit nobody else in the state of Tennessee.
Right, 'cause Fort Campbell's not.
Right, Pro Board will. So anything that we are not currently accredited to in Pro Board, so let's just say ARF is not accredited in Pro Board. We're accredited for ARF and IPSAC, but not Pro Board right this second. if a community college decided, hey, I want to go after all this stuff pro board that the state is not accredited to, they can call pro board. Pro board will say, okay, hold tight. They're gonna call you. They're gonna say, hey, XYZ community college or university just said they want all these other levels that you are not accredited to in pro board. Do you want to take them on? If you say yes, then you've met their need because now we'll offer those certifications. If we say no, we don't want it, but we'll take it and we'll delegate it. Pro board will accredit us. We foot the bill for everything, but we delegate all the work to that community, that college or the university. If we say no, we don't want nothing to do with all that stuff, then at that point, pro board will accredit
Yeah,
that college or
They've
university.
got some niche certs out there.
Right, I mean, because pro board is all about getting the certifications on the street. They don't care where they come from. That's why you have a bunch of agencies like the IAFF, the IAFC that are accredited.
DSLA.
Right,
Yeah.
there's a lot of agencies that are accredited. So in the sense of that, if we're gonna kind of have a rule for a very small, minute potential, is it just for a fire department? Well, what if a college goes and gets a pro board accreditation?
So should we just change the language to read organization? instead?
Or delete it.
So-
Because I would never see us not recognizing a pro board as a certificate, no matter how they got it.
That was kind of my next question is if it's if it's coming from a nationally accredited agency, if SACR Pro Board, does it matter if it was from a fire? So Hawaii, it's Honolulu Fire Department that's accredited.
Right.
That's not the state of Hawaii. South Africa, Cape Town Fire Department is the accredited agency. So if
So
somebody
we just wanted it.
and to that point, Josh, the Western coordinator, sent me two certifications from Rural Metro in South Africa the other day. Like, is this legit? And it is. So people are coming here from all over the world, and technically that would be coming from a fire department certification. Now, and I know it says in Tennessee, but to that point, if we're going to recognize an accredited certification, does it really matter where it comes from?
This probably was written to protect TFACA.
Okay,
I
I could see that.
I think that's probably where the number 7 came. I think they have plenty of business if you ask Jeff and
Yeah.
Barty. I don't know if they're on today, but I'm pretty sure that was written to ensure the success of, just like in Dallas, the city of Fort Worth and Dallas signed a pact they'd never open an airport so that DFW would be viable for its whole life. Now they've since repealed it because it's one of the biggest metropolitan areas, but there was rules.
Well, and North Carolina has a rule right now that if you belong to a fire department in North Carolina, you cannot leave the state and go get a certification that the state offers and then turn around and get reciprocity or equivalent credit for it. And it was done to protect, keep the business in the state.
Yeah.
Go to the college and take it.
Oh,
It's
it's quicker,
it's
it's
quick-
cheaper.
Well, cheaper, but it's quicker.
But it is more expensive because I think for details.
Yeah, but it's a whole lot quicker.
Faster.
So just take 7 out completely then.
See, anybody taking the time to do.
So then
They
our
haven't already.
Or accrue the cost.
Yeah, okay.
legal has a little bit of homework. Everybody has homework on this progression through 30-day meeting period. To kind of go to the stakeholders and should apply.
Okay, Mom.
I don't want us to forget, I'm gonna say it while we're still recording. So I can go back and watch. Anything else we need to do in chapter 6, right? I think we need to meet at least one more time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to say, oh, we're done, because I think these rules are gonna bounce off.
When
chapter
is
2.
next commission meeting?
I want to say, I thought y'all
July
scheduled,
20.
yeah, I think y'all scheduled it July 29th.
So
Yeah.
how much of a notice for your 30 days, isn't it?
For a rule making?
How many file with Secretary of State takes 2 days from the day? What's its file? That's how it will- Right, so we can bring in the final rules to the commission meeting at the end of July. And so that will give us, we could have our one more meeting at the beginning of July.
Rules?
Yeah, for
Okay.
rules. We could have that one more meeting. Make sure we have everything buttoned up. That way, at the end of July, we can go ahead and bring it in front of the full commission. And then we can go ahead and file them to go ahead and start the rule hearing 52 days later, right?
So we would bring it in front of the commission and to get permission to officially start the rulemaking process.
July
in
29th.
July. Then it would go to internal review and then would travel. Explain that.
Go to Attorney General's office and then the governor's office review, and then I'll file. Yeah.
So once it came back from Attorney General and Governor, we filed it with the Secretary of State. It's in for 52 days.
Yeah.
Then we have the rulemaking.
Okay.
And so that rulemaking hearing would be when we open up for public comment.
Right.
The only thing that filing locks us into is that we can't open chapters after that.
Correct.
So
These are the two main chapters that we have to have addressed and fixed. And that's why we wanted to keep it as a small package to help facilitate it moving faster. Because the last time we did all 7 chapters.
Yeah.
And it took 2 years.
So the question is too, though, is y'all talked a lot about that Tennessee volunteer firefighter certification.
Yeah.
I think it's just,
Yeah.
Okay,
it's done.
clearing this out.
Yeah.
So we don't want that, because that would take more making opening other chapters.
About that whole Tennessee volunteer firefighter certification where they had their HMA class, their 16, their 64. Basically, it would have been, a quick verification, if you will, that, hey, they met the minimum qualifications for EIP. But I think with all the changes we've done here with the EIP, we don't even need to look at that being on the books.
Well, they still gotta have it though at their 60th month.
What? No,
Let's go back to chapter.
stop.
Yeah, let's go back to chapter real quick.
So I shouldn't forget to say this. We need to make sure what we've done in these 2 chapters, and I need y'all's help with this, isn't in direct violation of any other part. Like, because if we need to open 1 page on chapter 3 to clean up that, whatever we were talking about earlier in chapter 2 and chapter 3, I just don't want to leave it to publish something in the law during this direct conflict with each other. We've been learning about this. Right, I want to fix it. I don't want to do a halfway job for the sake of speaking. I don't want.
I'll go through and double check and make sure that, but I feel confident that I don't think that we have.
The only thing that we would need.
That would be my only concern.
Which chapter is that?
6 with all of the NFPA standards.
Yeah. So 6 is like 6 and 7. Like I said, that's why we're only focusing on these 2.
Closed book chapters. They don't touch any of their friends.
Well, what we did in the last one is took all NFPA standard references
To chapter 7.
and changed the language to the adopted referenced NFPA standards in chapter 6. Basically in so many words.
So
They tried to do that, but I don't think every single one of them got. I think there's still some NFPAs floating around in there. I'll look.
can you just let me know? We can bring it to the next meeting. So then this is what we're talking about. This is what we're saying about volunteer firefighters for EMP. It's on the screen.
2 pages.
Volunteer firefighter must be compliant with minimum basic standard training pursuant to
24A.
I thought we had or equivalent in there. Isn't that where we threw or equivalent?
The core equivalent's in the law.
It's in the law, C. By the end of the.
So within 36 months, they have to have the minimum basic.
So the firefighter one was or proof of.
I'm saying 30.
I've never
30
understood why it was repeated, that second part of the sentence there, the requirement shall be satisfied if the firefighter can show proof of compliance. Is there a reason why that needs to be repeated there from what's right above it?
So if you. Josh, Mary Beth, just wanted to make sure you were paying attention.
Well, it was like that in the old rule. I never completely understood. It sounded like we were just making it complicated.
If y'all are okay with taking that out, I think that it would still make sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
But we're still at the,
Volunteers.
scroll back down. We still got the firefighter one requirement in there at
No.
6 months.
It's or proof. So it's just saying that if a volunteer gets firefighter one,
That's why the or is there.
yeah. We're not saying they have to have it. It's just if they go get it, then they supersede the
Minimum requirement.
minimum requirements. So we're giving them credit for.
Any
Okay,
other-
but that line also says without leaving the service for more than 60 months.
So,
Yeah, what did we just do in chapter 6 on break in service?
We did get out.
We
Take it
waited
out. Yep.
Guess what, David? We just deleted it here.
And does the approved live burn language need to be there either?
By the end of the calendar year in which volunteer reaches its 36-month service with the recommends department.
With the,
That was going with this other part.
Bottom of
This-
page
this-
2 says comply with the law. That includes all of that.
Yeah, the law requires that burn within 36 months.
Right. It also gives you a couple of ways out of it too.
Right.
Yeah, and we included that up at the top.
so take the,
That's where the A and C comes from, Josh.
Right. I got you.
I guess what he's asking is if number 1 now says they must be compliant with the minimum basic training standard and cites the law, why are we duplicating the live fire at the bottom?
I just took it out.
It's gone.
she took it out.
All right, okay.
Because under A2 is the fire burn requirement of PCA, and I really don't want to go
I
make
think,
a legislative change.
I think the reason that we had it there was because originally it had been, we talked about 3 years and 10 years,
Yeah.
and switched to 120 months, and now it's just out. It's just we cited the statute.
That sounds good. That sounds a lot simpler.
What?
No, then we're gonna complicate it up.
Josh, I didn't say that.
What?
I'm with the government. I'm here to help.
What's David?
What you got, David?
Okay, don't shoot me, Director.
Oh, gosh.
I hear this from across the state and even in meetings with commissioners. Where in chapter 7 is it written that we put every class in a CADIS?
Oh,
Yeah,
In
He was
which
gonna bring-
Tina
Hey.
has to have in there.
that was the last thing.
Oh, his,
Yeah.
Yeah, it just says I have to have records ready for audit. And I submit the form like we did years ago. When we started a CADIS, that was here's what you've got to do now. And it has never been added to.
So we need to add something to,
So if a department does not put their classes in a CADIS, can you legally tell them they're not qualified?
There's no classes there.
No, the rosters.
But all that's
Having-
required is that verification form, which is what we did my whole career until a CADIS came up.
So it's gonna be under,
So,
yeah, submissions or.
Unless you're reading into something that haven't found, there's rules on what my rosters look like now. There's rules on what I submit at the end of the year. There's rules on having stuff for audit. Nowhere,
So
because you've already said you're never gonna audit in a CADIS again, so, I mean,
that's kind of where I was thinking it would be best suited under record storage, you know, all records must be submitted through the commission's record management system. Yep.
Because it was in there at one time because we didn't want to put a CADIS in there. We
Yeah.
put records
Yeah.
management just in case we moved away from a CADIS.
Yeah.
I think over the years and different little changes, it's just been diluted down to where it's not there.
So guess what? It's now letter C, under record storage.
we want it to say records or rosters.
No, the records management system. Okay, so all training, all EIP,
Record training. Rosters.
Aaron, do you think records or rosters?
I think records could be
records covers it.
records could be encompassing of rosters.
Yeah, but if
If you
somebody
say
says
record, somebody's gonna think I gotta do everything,
Yeah.
everything,
the whole kit and caboodle,
the training program, everything. She just needs the
I
roster.
think, I think just rosters.
Well, it'd be rosters or course certificates
Yeah, I like that better.
or
'Cause-
proof of training, or yeah, I don't know. Because now if someone goes to the academy and takes a class and I want to use it for theirs, it's not part of a program anymore. I've got to submit that as part of the EIP.
I like that proof of training. All education incentive pay proof of training must be submitted by the department.
That's a part.
And I don't think this needs to be added, but I would like it to be implied that if it's already in a CADIS, we don't need to resubmit it into a CADIS. And what I mean is, approve meetings, conferences, classes taken at TFAC. Right now, we're being told to resubmit those again when we submit our EIP, but they're already there in a CADIS. So from an implementation standpoint, I hope we can find a way to not have to upload them all again.
I don't think that'll be an issue, Josh. I think with this, Tina's gonna be able to just kind of run down through people's records for the year and just see how many, make sure everybody's got 30 hours, 40 hours, whatever,
Yeah.
depending upon their career or volunteer status. And I don't foresee any reason to have to duplicate that.
That would
Yeah,
be
so,
great.
so correct me if I'm wrong. If I send someone to an instructor one course at the academy, it's going to show up on their yearly training report. It just may not be
Correct.
flagged as EIP, but it's still there.
Right.
But in that case, David, the last couple of years, we've been asked to
Yeah,
send it again.
I think that's
even
just,
certifications.
because that takes time.
But I don't think with what we're trying to propose, I don't think she'll have to search for it.
No, because it's basically, you have 3 tabs at the bottom of your ACADIS. It's, upcoming, ongoing, then you have current year, I think last year, and then all time. At the bottom, and you could actually see the total number of hours that are sitting in each block.
But I mean, to go even further, if you clicked on current year or previous year and sorted them, it should have the hours.
It's gonna have the hours in the block at the top. So,
I think it'll be a whole lot easier for sure.
okay,
Hey, do you all wanna do the next? meeting?
Yes,
So, okay.
yes, yeah.
so. We were saying what, second Tuesday, or I'm sorry, second Thursday?
We could take, yeah, second Thursday of every month.
So July 10th would be,
Second Thursday. So 5 weeks from today. I don't know that we want to do it on Thursday because it's take off.
what did, you said July 29th is the commission meeting?
Yeah.
No, we haven't set that in, we haven't even set the location.
Mhm.
If
We set the date.
Day or two, or,
They'll set that date at the last meeting,
Yeah.
because other people had other things going on.
Yeah, we did placeholder.
Yeah.
They were.
we didn't say where.
No.
I hate to do this to you, but I think
Middle Tennessee?
Oak Ridge would be, no, I was thinking east.
Oh, you know what? Well, we just came from Gatlinburg.
Y'all said middle,
We said middle, but
Yeah,
it's just the 4 of us.
Oh, no, for,
Oh, you're talking about the commission meeting itself, yeah.
no, that's what we're discussing.
For this next
For
meeting,
the rules, so
Rules committee, that's a different app.
let's set that one first.
July 10th would be the next meeting.
Okay.
Or, yeah, second Thursday. Only reason we didn't do second Thursday is,
Do y'all wanna do it again here, or do you wanna do
I mean, I can,
teams,
we
or?
can do it here or Teams. I don't, and we'll send the link out from here. Maybe help you, although this did not work other than. turning
Yeah, this
it
worked
off.
fine, I mean,
Yeah,
we just
once
have,
we knew what we're, get a handle on it,
I
and I'll
think
try to
it's,
figure out how about setting the
it's
timer.
on a
on
timer
it.
or something.
That only affects this room.
let's do July 10th here,
okay,
9 AM.
Clear that, the powers to be, and we have 6 other conference rooms besides ours available as premier tenants. There are bigger ones on first floor, the other 2 buildings. We'll be here somewhere. I'll confirm them. As long as John keeps buying lunch.
In July.
29th is the date for the other. We haven't set a place. Tennessee Sheriff's Conference in Severe, that's what's drawing on.
That week?
I mean, not all of it, Tennessee Chiefs of Police. First of all.
Yeah, but when's supposed to be there?
I'm just, well, I can send Chase to set up. It opens at 10 o'clock that morning.
On the 29th?
That's why I said go create, that's fudge.
Yeah, but that's the commission week.
I know. Cookville's always nice.
Yeah, we've done Cookville
Done Cookville.
a couple times. Matter of fact, I think we did it 2 months in a row, or 2 meetings in a row.
We may have.
I've never been to Cookville with y'all.
Oh, we go, there's 2 hotels next to each other that have state rate, and Chief Moore, not Chief, he's retired,
Well,
Chief Brown. We always had it at the Cookville, the Putnam County building was right by the interstate.
Yeah.
With a big meeting room downstairs.
Oh, I've been there.
Somebody.
You, that's
Oh.
when we did the emergency meeting, we did downstairs, that's right.
Yeah.
Would you wanna go there?
He says, yeah, I'm just trying to think, Hillsville and. Although Cookville's not Sevierville or Kingsport. We need,
Hopefully.
what do we have to give 30 days notice? So we're gonna have to decide where that meeting's gonna be. We set the date, we didn't set the place.
Still consider middle too, so.
It is, Cookville is Middle Tennessee. Just need, I don't know who the chief is now, he's retired.
Putnam County, I wanna say dealt with Nash up there, Cody Nash.
Yeah.
From Putnam County.
As long as that room's available that day. And there are other rooms in town. My brother works at Tennessee Tech, so he's the engineer over all the facilities. You can always find a room on Tennessee Tech if all those fail. That's what we'll do. So 10th at 9 here. Work on the timer on the screen.
Cause on the 29th we're doing work session and
Yes.
Yes,
One day?
9 o'clock, one day.
Yep,
yeah.
one day.
And that's pretty neutral for anybody from, of course, we don't have any Far East Tennessee. We have Oak Ridge and Sevierville, right? Far East Tennessee reps.
Yep.
West Tennessee is.
Come in.
I'm the furthest.
So they come in and spend the night ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, I would.
I know where you're going. You're going to Rouse. I know what you're up to. I'm probably going to football. I'm going to Rouse.
Okay.
So,
Down the way.
Yeah. And what was that restaurant
Oh,
called over there
Well,
by?
my brother took me to
Are we,
it.
finished with
They're
the meeting?
downtown, man. It was.
Y'all, we,
Oh, yeah, we adjourn the meeting.
all right.
We digress.
Thank
Well, it's
you.
3 o'clock.